Hello, Dragon Sanctuary, and welcome to the first Dragon's Den podcast in 50,000 years. It's been a long time since I've done one of these. Before I introduce the guests, all I want to say is that the podcast is going to be utilized in this sort of fashion moving forward, in that we're going to do like targeted discussion things about things we want to actually talk about. For example, we're talking about Scarlet Violet today. It could be anything. It may not be regular. It might be, every couple of months. It just depends on what's available to talk about and if it's something I really want to talk about with other people, etc. So, now that we got that out of the way, let me introduce the guests. First and foremost, standing over in the savannah biome, because I've been all clever and witty and all that kind of thing, and we're all standing in the different biomes of the terrarium, is my fellow Aussie compadre. We have Acer. And
Hello.
Yep, there they are. Choo, finger guns. And then we've got over in the canyon of probably their own making, because they've sunk so very low in life, we have the one and only, thank fuck for that, Cindershots, aka Luke, aka Plonky.
Save me!
Oh, that's beautiful. And of course, sitting in the frozen wastelands of the polar biome is NorthWolfPetal.
Lep.
Thank you. And I'm hanging out at the coastal area trying to get a tan. We're going to talk about Scarlet and Violet, but more probably towards, obviously, the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero DLC stuff, because I did do a podcast after the main game. So, there's not really a formula or a format to talking about things today, but I know we've all got our opinions on positives and the negatives and everything else that's been going on with the DLCs and how it's all played out. Does anyone have a starting point or something they really actually already wanted to talk about before I, shove things in a direction?
DLC good.
Okay, well that ends today's podcast.
DLC good.
DLC good. You heard it here, folks. DLC good. Thank you for watching. No,
We'll see you next time.
literally. Let's start with Teal Mask, all right? Because it's been a little while since Teal Mask came out. Although these two DLCs came out very close together in the grand scheme of things. So different area, not Paldea. New characters. Not really any of the original characters coming into play for the most part. What was your thoughts about Teal Mask? Okay, let's talk about Kitakami. I really like Kitakami. I really like it. It was bigger than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be a smaller area. But I like the vibe it gives off. I like that it was different and it had its sort of own history in that. Like, it had a very interesting backstory kind of thing. We don't know where it is. Like,
That's a weird thing. It's kind of just like in the middle of nowhere. We know it's not part of Paldea, but we don't know exactly where it is. With the context and hindsight of we go to a different area for Indigo Disc in part 2. I would like to think and guess maybe it's somewhere between Paldea and Unova, but where exactly I have no idea. The land itself of Kitakami, it's not as small as I thought it would be, but I think that kind of, in my opinion, and people can disagree, hinders it a little bit because it is a little bit empty, I feel.
it's definitely I don't know if the word is empty. I get what you mean.
I don't mean it in the literal sense, but because obviously a lot of the Pokemon experience in Scarlet and Violet takes away a lot of the experience of, you had the wild area from Sword and Shield that kind of led into what Scarlet and Violet eventually became, with the whole being able to explore Pokemon around you all the time kind of thing. And I know they wanted to keep doing that in Kitakami, but it just feels like you have obviously you have Mosseri Town, and you have the exploration you can do from there up until where you learn about the Loyal 3 and everything, and the little markets. But with all the area around it, I know it's kind of like more of like a nature thing, but I don't know, it just seems a bit... It wasn't bad, it was fun to explore, all the Pokemon that were around. I don't know, it just seems a bit like they could... could have maybe thrown in a very small little villagey town kind of area on the map somewhere.
It could have. I think that because it didn't have a second, like, whether it was a village or another living space or whatever, it did feel a little bit like everything went back to Masuya Town.
Mhm.
Well, what do you guys think, Acer and Paddle?
I definitely feel because it was just that one town, it does feel a lot smaller. Also with it, there's a lot of small Pokemon. There weren't really a lot of larger ones as well. Like, there's a lot of small Pokemon in Kitakami.
Oh, you know, I've never actually thought of that until you pointed it out, but yes, there are.
Yeah.
There are so
Like,
many.
you go around Kitakami, there's no, like, Duraludons out there. Probably, thankfully.
No, there's really not a lot of big Pokemon now that you've... Yeah, I've not actually given that any thought. No, I can't think of any, other than when the Loyal 3 eat their herb things and end up like skyscraper-sized bloody monstrosities.
Like, you've got the odd Hatchram off in the Timeless Forest.
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably the biggest...
Yeah, that and Trevenant. Yeah, that... The Timeless Forest... Yeah, and Grimmsnarl, yeah. Timeless Woods, I think it is probably the only area where there's some largish Pokemon. Especially after you play the main. I know that obviously the main games, or the main El Paldea is huge, but like you were dealing with things like, oh god, I'm trying to block him out of my memory. The big fish in the fucking lake. Dondozo, for example. But like, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but there are a lot of small Pokemon in that area.
I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I'm not saying this just because I know I'll get a reaction out of Beaz, although it is funny. But like, genuinely, I was not a huge fan of. We got a couple of new Pokemon, obviously in Kitakami, the Teal Master. We got it.
I know where this is going.
We got
you
the Loyal 3, which you know what? Yeah, some people know where it's going. The Loyal 3 are cool. Pheasantipity is my favourite one. I don't know why. But I don't think there's one I inherently don't like. They're not crazy, but they're just there. They're just
out of the three, I don't particularly like Monkey Dory.
I mean, I won't write home about him, but it doesn't offend me. You know, it's one of those where it's like, yeah, they can stick around. I'm alright with it.
Dear mother and father, I seen a Monkey Dory today.
I saw a Pheasantipity. How Monkey Dory? I hope you're feeling okie dokie. Right.
Oh,
so,
Lord.
but Dipplin. Now.
Oh, don't you be nice. What are you gonna say about my Dipplin, huh?
Now
that sounds like a weird sentence.
Yeah, it is weird. I will say we'll talk about it more when we speak about Indigo Disc later. But Hydrapple's fantastic. I love Hydrapple. Dipplin, for whatever reason, I just want to destroy it. I don't like it. It's just kind of there. It's just it thinks it's like the cool kid of the group, and it's just like really obnoxiously annoying to me, in my opinion.
But if you take it into consideration, I mean, I liked it before we got Hydrapple. If you take it into consideration now that it's the middle evolution, it makes sense because you couldn't just go from Applin to Hydrapple. It just would be weird.
True, yeah.
You know, I mean, Hydrapple's got the apple on its horn, so it's like, what, did it just suddenly explode out of that? You know, like, it literally was a process of going from little apple to bigger apple with two creatures in it to the multitude of madness that is Hydrapple.
Well, like, you know, I'm to put it simply, I'm happy it's a middle evolution because if that was the final evolution, I think it would have been a waste opportunity. But I'm glad that we got Hydrapple out of it in the end because it's a very cool Pokemon.
What do you think, Paddle? Tell us about your Kitakami experience.
Yeah, I like the whole region, but I do agree it does feel a bit empty in spaces because, well, there are some unique spots like, you know, I'm blanking on the name of it, but like Canyony Gorge area and the Timeless Woods and all that. Some of the others, like the Whistle Fields, it's just a bunch of grass. Like, that really sets it apart. One big thing I'm very happy with, though, each area has a unique name instead of being, you know, just North Province Area 3 or something like that.
Yes, that is one thing that the base game really suffered was, apart from the towns and the occasional, like, if it was one of the, like, what is it, the 10 Wonders of Paldea or whatever, nothing had names. It was like West Province Area 73. And it's like, well, that's nice. What does that mean? Like,
but in Kitakami, all the various areas have their own unique names.
Yes.
It gives them more of an identity.
And you immediately go, yes, I know where that is. Because, like, if, for example, if I said Infernal Pass, you'd know exactly where I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
You know, that's the home of Luke's little lopsided candle friends.
Hi. They like to hang out. Luke is fantastic. I'm okay. Just very quickly, I'm so happy my boy got added. I'm so happy.
Hey, Luke. I'm gonna join you in this. I'm so happy my girl got added.
Which one?
In the second part. Alone Vulpix.
Yes.
I am sad because my girl did not get added.
I was going to say, Absol would have been an amazing one to add in the polar biome.
Yes.
That is not there.
Either the polar biome or the canyon biome, like on the mountainous parts of the canyon biome.
No, I think, as someone who's played the Mystery Dungeon games, I think polar biome would have been cooler.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, even if it was just one up on top of the hills, that would have been cool.
I'm privileged because, unlike last time when I had to wait until the last DLC of the game, I got mine in the base game, so I was happy.
You did.
Because I had to wait until Crown Tundra to get Dragonite.
And then you kept on getting more and more dragons.
I did.
Yep.
Yeah.
All of them. I've got so many. Now there's just lots of the dragons everywhere.
I have a question to everyone about Kitakami, actually.
Yes.
Because, apart from... Because we're talking about what our thoughts were about the whole DLC and everything. I'm going to possibly stump you, or, you'll have two reactions of this. Either I'm going to stump you, or you're going to prove how much you like the DLC. But apart from, learning about the Loyal 3, do you remember much about the story exactly?
Yes.
All right, because for me personally, it's one of those things where I know roughly, but there's apart from a couple of characters, which only were a couple of new characters, it just seemed like it was a bit kind of short. And I know it was a 2-part situation with this DLC. It was going to be a short story anyway, especially for the setup for Indigo Disc. That came, which was fantastic, but it just seemed like there wasn't much payoff.
I guess the focus for the Kitakami stuff was they really needed to play the Kieran card, all right? Because when we went into it, Kieran was the timid one, and Carmine was the one that everyone assumed was going to be some sort of horrible character in the end. And so to flip the script and turn them the opposite way around almost was, was a good move, but they had to have a process in which to do that, and that's where the whole story with the Loyal 3 and obviously Ogerpon came in. Because otherwise, how did they piece those two together to make it a coherent story rather than just him getting angry? You know what I mean? Like there was a backstory to it. I guess the other thing is that once you've played Indigo Disc, you know that Kitakami had some sort of influence or some sort of impact on Turo and Sada's research and everything, because they make mention of the crystal pool in Kitakami. So there is relevance to why it existed and why that story had to happen, but they use the Loyal 3 as a bit of a plot device into sort of cause Kieran's, for the lack of a better term, emotional demise. Like, he just fell apart.
That was also one of my biggest pet peeves. You're forced to lie to him!
You are forced to lie to him. You don't get a choice. Either answer is like... What I will say...
Both as, like, I don't want to say either of these things.
What I will say that I like about the game in general, including the base game, is that we were given those opportunities to get different dialogue depending on our actions. Not heaps, but there was lots of those little moments where... And I'll talk about one of them that I found out recently, which I was really impressed with. But... where you can get different dialogue because of your actions or something you've said.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it a little bit of a difference, even though we're heading towards the same conclusion.
Well, it adds a bit of individuality to it as well.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Which is nice. I like that.
It is, especially when you go to your friends who've also played it, and you go, yeah, this NPC said this to me. And you just get that, they didn't say that to me. They said something completely different to me.
Plus, I guess the events that happen in Kitakami are the reason why we get invited to Blueberry Academy anyway.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
we know that Teal Mass is a build-up to Indigo Disc. So, of course it's going to be part 1, part 2, it's in the name. But, it just kind of circles back to, one, it was a good build-up. And luckily, it also wasn't much of a wait between part 1 and part 2. I think, if I remember correctly, and I probably don't, but was it a longer wait between Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra for Sword and Shield?
I believe so, yes.
I believe so, but not by much. It wasn't huge. It wasn't a huge wait, but then I guess the difference between this one and those was that these all linked together, whereas for the most part, those are 3 standalone stories.
Mm-hmm.
The base game, what happens on Isle of Armor, and then Crown Tundra are very standalone. You could play any of those and they wouldn't sort of connect for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this was like literally what happens in the main game is then triggered to go further into Kitakami, then goes further into the Indigo Disc stuff, because then and it all comes back to Area 0. So it's very well crafted from that perspective. But I do agree with you. I was a bit concerned that getting them so close together before we knew what happened in Teal Mask was going to be a mistake. But I think they had to release them fairly close, because the way Teal Mask ends on a cliffhanger, basically, people were like, we need to go to the next thing, please. Because we want to know what's going on.
I do like the areas that are in Kitakami. Like I say, we did mention it was a little bit empty in certain parts, but it was very pretty to go through for the first time. Because, these DLCs, you go through the areas, you know where you're going, you're looking at everything, and it's just kind of like, a new area. It's quite exciting, especially with how... Scarlet Violet, everyone knows. You walk around, see all the Pokemon around you. It just kind of adds to the, I'm in a completely new place and it's exciting.
Oh god, I remember playing even the base game. I spent like hours before I even got to the school. Because I was just like, oh, look, this Pokemon. Oh, that Pokemon. Oh, what's over here? Oh, there's a little nook over here. Let's go and explore that. Like, it was a lot of that. And I think that's a positive moving forward with the series in general, is that as much as, don't get me wrong, I still like a good old-fashioned 2D sprite kind of thing, but I think there is room for this kind of thing as well, because, as much as those 2D sprite games are, the replayability and, the nostalgia factor and the fact that they're almost ageless because they generally don't, age badly because of the art style, I think we're getting to a point where Pokemon has to be a bit different to be able to continue to go in the way it's going, because you can only do so much of the same thing over and over again. And yes, the core of Pokemon is basically the same, but what they've been doing more recently has been a little bit different, and I kind of like it. I like what it's, when I remember when Pokemon Legends Arceus came out, and everyone's like, "Oh God, this is going to be, what is this?" And now it's considered like one of the best, funnest games they've made. It's like, sometimes change can be a good thing.
Yeah.
Was it ever decided whether or not, because I remember there being, going off topic for a little second, was it ever decided whether people said whether Legends Arceus was a main series game or not?
It's considered main series.
Okay. Because I know that it was a massive thing, because it was like, it's main series, no it's not, yes it is, and it's just like...
Officially, from the perspective of the Pokemon Company, it is a main series game, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, they don't consider it a side series at all.
But
yeah.
Carmine and Kieran, thoughts on the characters themselves, how they were done?
Bit iffy on Carmine, in all honesty.
Really?
Yeah.
How come?
I think Carmine wears a bit thin by the end.
That also
he does a little bit.
She's constantly like over the top. Always gets annoyed, frustrated, angry. Or at least that's at least how she came off to me, because she's always getting like worked up and angry and such. Especially like Kieran, if he's just being himself. Just like feels like she's constantly going off at something.
Yeah, but then you start to learn to understand why, because there's a lot of frustration in making sure that Kieran actually becomes his own character and making sure that he's okay. Because she's essentially like, a lot of the frustration seems to be just making sure that Kieran's okay. It seems to be. So,
she's that older sister.
Yeah, so which is why it seems like she mellows out a lot more when Kieran starts coming into his own in Indigo Disc. It's like he's fighting his own fights, and Carmine's like, okay, I'm gonna back the hell out because while I want to look after him, he's doing it himself. At the beginning, he really couldn't because he was constantly hiding behind her.
What they did with Kieran is, whilst it's the very typical trope that's been used in a lot of games, I like how they took his insecurities and turned that into what made him go to the depths of absolute madness as a kid. Like, let's be honest there. It's not like he was, turning into a serial killer or something. Although sometimes the way he looked like a serial killer. But
some of those facial expressions
I know.
was scary.
That smile he does at one point.
Yeah.
I'm like,
oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, you think about it. It's
I
kind of
think we
protagonist.
all had that same kind of reaction to it. Well, at least Beaz, because I sort of got to see Beaz's playthrough. It's just that moment. It's just like, oh, ooh.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that.
very not cringy, but it's very like, oh, that's uncomfortable.
It's kind of the protagonist's fault because it comes from an admiration thing as well. Of like, this person's fantastic, I want to get to their level. And when it comes to the point where he just keeps falling more and more short every single time, it's like, it's gonna drive him mad. So it's kind of our fault.
Yeah, but I guess
plus the Ogrepon situation too certainly didn't help.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be the first one.
Yeah.
Who took? Okay, did everyone take Ogerpon to the final battle?
I did.
I did.
Yeah.
Oh wait, are we talking to the final battle in Teal Mask?
No.
No.
Oh, I was gonna say because
With Kieran.
Right. So after, I'll hold my hands up. I got Ogerpon, and then because I heard the Indigo Mask was a difficulty spike, it was like VGC style. I already had VGC teams ready, so I brought one of them in. So I did not use Ogerpon at all.
Oh, yeah, because we'll get to that afterwards. But there was a specific interaction you can trigger with Kieran in the final battle in Indigo Disc.
Oh.
That
If you bring out Ogerpon.
If you bring out Ogerpon, he just absolutely freaks out.
I didn't know that.
It's very funny, actually, but like we'll get to that when we get to he loses his shit basically. Overall, I think Teal Mask was okay because I always look at this is a second game that we've had DLC specifically for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is definitely a step up from Isle of Armor, because Isle of Armor was just... Isle of Armor, apart from introducing the new Pokemon, was mind-numbing for me. I didn't find Kitakami mind-numbing. I found the story a bit short, but I think the time that we had in Kitakami was just enough before we got Indigo Disc.
I think Kitakami was better than what Isle of Armor was. I think Isle of Armor gets a little bit too much hate because I did like it, I did enjoy it. Kitakami was a little bit shorter than Isle of Armor was, if I recall correctly.
Story-wise, yeah.
It has been a hot minute since I played it, so I could be wrong. But while Kitakami was fun, I just wanted just a little bit more of it. But you know, as a build-up to part 2, I was happy with it. It was a little bit like barren content-wise, in the sense if you do it and then the replayability if at that point was all still in the base game rather than the DLC.
That is very fair.
Yeah.
After I'd done everything in Kitakami, other than, obviously being a shiny hunter, I went back for outbreaks and stuff. There's nothing else to do in there. The replayability, yes, does go back to the base game.
I mean, you have Ogre Ousting, but that's it.
Which honestly, oh god, Ogre Ousting is so hard. I
don't mean to sound like a massive ego person, but it's not. It's like,
have you completed hard on that?
No, it's just because I haven't bothered.
Oh, nonsense! You try hard. It's not that. Not you try hard. You try hard mode.
I thought you just called me out. I was like,
you try hard mode, and then you come back to me and say, "Yeah, Beaz, that was easy," because it ain't.
That's a fair point.
Even with 4 people,
we still haven't beaten it. We still haven't beaten it. And the prize for beating that. Spoilers. I mean, at this point, it's really not. Is you get a shiny Munchlax.
Oh, that's how people got it. Okay.
Yes, you get a shiny Munchlax, and it's got the. It's got a mark. I can't remember what the mark is.
Crafty?
Crafty mark. That's it. Yes.
Hey, my brain worked.
There you go.
Congratulations.
You've had enough caffeine.
Yay.
just enough to kick it into gear.
It's kicking in.
Kicked in.
Guess what? I just finished my mug of coffee.
That's
Yay.
why. That one last mouthful of coffee is like, haha, yes,
Oh,
crafty
absolutely.
Mark.
Aha, I'm ready.
But yeah, I liked that, and the Kitakami Ogre Clan little battles were cool. We got some good rewards out of certain activities, including getting all the tablecloths. We ended up with a heap of Herba Mystica. So there were reasons to do the stuff in Kitakami. Oh, the Blood Moon, Beast. Obviously the Blood Moon Ursaluna. That you
I
get.
only just recently did that because I didn't know how
That
to do
thing?
that. And then Beaz told me, I think it was just under a week ago, wasn't it? That,
Yes.
you need to do this. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. And that quest line is fun.
It was fun. It was really cool, and I loved the throwbacks, and I loved the references to Hisui, and
I
everything.
hated taking the pictures.
Yeah, the pictures were interesting at some points, but it was very much.
I liked taking the pictures.
I liked the
Same.
way they kind of just subtly threw that into the mix and that. Blood Moon Ursaluna as a Pokemon, holy shit. I've used it a few times. That thing is a beast. And no joke, like no pun intended or anything. That's mean. That thing can be... No wonder it's been... Because I know it's been banned from competitive.
Yeah, it got banned from VGC and competitive use.
Yeah, because it's literally...
Wait, no, not from VGC. I think it got banned from. You can do the online battles and ranked battles on the game, but
Yes.
VGC I think it was able to be used.
But
if I recall correctly.
it's lethal.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
if you build it correctly, it is an absolute powerhouse. Because its signature move, Blood Moon, you can't use it every second turn, but it will hit ghost types. Like it doesn't. It's not type means nothing,
There is another
And accuracy
well,
means
I'm not-
nothing.
and accuracy means nothing.
I was going to say, yeah, I do have the game open, so I'm going to have a quick look and then just confirm the details. But it's just an incredible Pokemon, and I never really got a chance to use it because I've only just done the quest line. But
It's a fascinating Pokemon. I was like, oh, because when I seen Perrin, I was like, oh, and okay, we've never really gotten a true confirmation, but there are so many hints that she's related to Adaman from PLA.
You know what? I kept missing that, and then Riley was one to point it out. It was like, and then once Riley told me, I was like, oh yeah. And then she said a certain thing about not wasting time, and I was
Yes.
like, oh yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the color
Yeah,
of her
yeah.
hair, and she's got the Diamond Clan symbol on her
Back
bag
pockets.
or back pocket. Yeah, all these like little things.
Hisui and Growlithe.
She's got a Hisui and Growlithe. Like, there's just so many
She's
things.
wearing the Diamond Clan colors.
Yes, she's literally yeah. She looks like Perrin. Looks like Adam and Perrin does. So, but yeah, no, it's an interesting one, and I love the little side quests. The little side quests are really nice to have because they're the kinds of things that do give the game a little bit more sort of longevity. Outside of the main story. Kitsukami was good. The Pokemon that were reintroduced via Kitsukami was good. The Pokemon that were in there made sense for that area. It's just we don't know anything else. Kitakami is still a very mysterious place simply because we don't know where it really lies. We don't know, what region it technically is tied to. It's its own entity, like it just exists, and it's not often we get those little places that just don't have a tie to anything, and I'm not saying it needs a tie, like it's more so just it's an unusual one, because also the other thing I was going to say, Perrin also makes reference to Johto as well.
Yes.
There's a lot of referencing Johto as well.
There's a lot of Johto Pokemon in the area in Kitakami too, so it could be in close proximity to a Johto.
And
Yes.
to point out as well, with the Johto references, a reward you get from her in Indigo Disc for doing the extra stuff is a Johto-related special Pokeball.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a sport ball.
So there's going to be we could get if I put my my oh my god this means this Twitter user cap
Gen 2 remakes confirmed?
let's go Johto or Unova remakes. But you know what? I'm going to take the hat back off again and be back in the room. But
There
No,
was
see, I'm
something
the
that
other.
I saw, but
What's
which
that?
kinda I liked it. It went along with our paradoxes. As a Scarlet
Yes.
user, I have my lovely, lovely prehistoric beasts,
Yes.
which are all the Johto trio,
Yes.
where we have our sword people from the future.
Oh
So the
yeah,
idea was a Legends, quote unquote, Johto for the past and a future game for the sword trio.
I would love
I
that.
never even
Yeah.
thought of that. The two trios are Unum and Johto.
Yes, they are.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually not a bad shout.
Which is the two main references we've had in both games.
Which also the other thing that would
Interesting.
work really well is that, you know, obviously the concept behind Pokemon Legends Arceus was that there was time travel involved.
Yeah.
Obviously in Johto we have Celebi.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah, which Celebi is very much a time traveler.
Yes. So there is that. There's been a lot of references, and it could just purely be references because there's also Alola references in Indigo Disc. So,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, so it could just be
Makes
fun.
sense.
Well, yes,
Unum and Alola, US and Hawaii.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, overall Kitakami, good, not perfect, but good.
It was definitely the stepping stone.
Yes.
Yeah. Plus, it has potential to come back to it for there's still mysteries there, like the Crystal Pool, how Stressland energy is there, and also what in the world gave the Loyal Three their toxic chains.
Mm.
Well, there is that, and then obviously we are revisiting Kitakami very shortly in January.
I'm very excited.
Because we are getting an epilogue, which was just the most random thing they've did. It's like, hey, there's an epilogue coming out on January the 11th, I think it is. I'm like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
I
like that we get to bring our friends.
Yes, I was about to say it's because it's really weird. We sort of just dropped them like a sack of potatoes, and then they never appeared.
I've got that opportunity. Goodbye. Have fun at school.
Like they never appear in either of the DLCs because I honestly was convinced that we would have potentially seen maybe one or two of them when we went back to Area Zero, like at the end of Indigo Disc, but no, we didn't. I was like, well, that kind of.
I'm going to throw my hat in the ring there and say that I'm kind of glad we didn't see them in the DLCs because the DLCs are one of those where you get the opportunity and the invite to venture out of Paldea and then all this thing, and the Kitakami events cause you to get invited to Blueberry Academy. So to see, you know, Kitakami, you could find a way maybe to get these friends into Kitakami because it's part of like a school trip kind of thing, but especially in Blueberry Academy, it wouldn't make sense to have them there. So it makes sense you've been there first, and then protagonist says, you know what, I'll bring my friends over because it's a cool place to visit and look at all this stuff going on.
Yeah. But I guess from my perspective, I mean, I'm not disappointed they weren't in there. I'm glad we're getting them in the epilogue because that makes sense. You know, they were so key to the start of the game, so it's, you know, it's interesting we're going back to Kitakami though. It is very interesting that that's where we're going. Which is fascinating. There's been a lot of leaks about the epilogue. Side note, I don't like that. I think that people, and it's happening across the industry, I think that the leak culture is disgusting. And it needs to stop. Because it's incredibly damaging. You know, and... It
takes away the fun of actually finding out for yourself.
I really loved Indigo Disc because I knew fuck all. Like I knew nothing when I went in. Basically, I was like, I watched a bit of like trailers earlier in the piece. I didn't watch the last trailer before it went. I didn't watch it, and I'm glad I didn't because I've since watched it and I was like, wow, they showed us a lot that I didn't know about, and I'm glad I didn't know about it because they talk about the synchro machine, for example, and I didn't know about the synchro machine. So I was kind of like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm glad I didn't, you know, because that's how it used to be. We didn't have access to everything everywhere because of the internet and everything else. It was, you know, it was a lot better that way, I find, because the experiences are unsullied. They're just not, they're not tarnished by saying something.
It's completely blind.
Yeah, exactly. So then Indigo Disc. which has only been out.
To talk about this because I have a theory in mind that me and Riley briefly spoke about. And we'll go into it more, but I just wanted to get this in before I forgot about it.
Yeah.
So upon in the DLCs, we get the opportunity to. This is spoilers for anyone that hasn't done it. Professor, something to do with the crystal pool.
Yes.
Now I'm assuming everyone in this podcast has actually done this.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So, if you don't want to know anymore, just mute the podcast for like the next couple of minutes. But Riley had the idea, and it makes sense. And we spoke about it for a bit. Where when the professor comes to see you, they seem very not wise to what's going on with the ride Pokemon. Not quite sure what it is. At least they get that vibe thing. And in my game, Professor Churro talks about having come from the past. I believe it was. I don't know what Sada says, but
Sada says they'll come from the past as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's the whole idea as well of because they're not too well versed or knowing about what's going on, and you fill them in about where they are and all that. Could that be some sort of time travel shenanigans of you meeting the professor before all the crazy shit went down? Could that be some time travel paradox where that professor is early on his research or her research, meeting you was a part of the reason why they were able to get more research going. They looked more into Area Zero, and then they end up doing the whole AI business that they were doing.
Yeah, it's a fascinating situation with that happening. Obviously, the first thing that we are made aware of is that Terapagos has some sort of power to open rifts, I suppose, is the best way to explain it. In the
to manipulate space and time where there is terrestrial energy,
Yes.
But then if you look in the Violet/Scarlet book, Terapagos has already been mentioned with details being cut out, and there's no way that they'd know about Terapagos unless they, have met it or had that encounter with the protagonist in the first place.
Yes, there seems to be.
Remember that's Teal's book, though.
Yeah, but there could be multiple copies of the research book.
Well, there seems to be. Well, because you end up getting Briar's book. Before we go any further, I just want to point out something about Briar.
It's crazy.
Well, she's insane. But Briar disappointed me in the end.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Because Briar was so much being set up, or appeared to be getting set up to be. She was going to turn at some point.
Well, that's the vibes we were getting as well when we were playing through. It's like,
I was convinced more or less from the get-go, like back in Teal Mask, that she was going to be the main or a antagonist at some point in the DLC. Because they make it so she's so adamant about going to Area Zero and her obsession with the terrestrial phenomenon and like just everything. It was more than just a professor or a teacher wanting to know more. It was like there was a desire to
like power.
Yes. And then it didn't eventuate to anything. She wrote a book.
Like she did constantly egg Kieran on, which only helped further his descent to madness.
Well, but see, that's the other thing, is that she played into causing Kieran to go down that path even further, especially once we got to the, like, climax of the entire story. But why? Because there's no reason to do that. Like, if she was egging him on to get what she wanted out of that situation, then I'd understand it, but it didn't naturally work that way. It just seemed like she was egging him on, but then why was she egging him on? Because she didn't really egg him on because of, I want the power. She didn't try to catch Terapagos like a certain other person did. It was...
No, well, she wanted to know the secrets and mysteries of the treasure, which was Terapagos. Because that's what, her ancestor Heath had discovered, and she wanted to know the truth. She wanted to know everything. So she had one that was completely willing to go along with and also help capture the legendary.
Yeah, I mean, I get that side of thing. I don't know. There was a vibe about her that seemed like
I feel
she
like part
was.
of that was her character design. She's very angled in her features, which a lot of people associate that with villain.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Her look gave me villain vibes.
Oh yeah, no, her look absolutely gave villain vibes.
I never thought that in Teal Mask. I had no clue.
Oh no!
So
The moment I seen her,
Indigo disc, I was like, this is an interesting development.
yeah, no, the moment I seen her, I got bad vibes, man. I don't know why, but there was just something about her. I'm like, And I remember
was
saying
unsure
it.
about her just because of her obsession with the terrestrial phenomenon back in the Teal Mask.
But like,
Which proved to be, yeah.
I do agree with Petal in that she did egg on Kieran. The entire time. She was like pushing Kieran to do these things and that. But I just don't. And I mean, even towards when she wrote the book and that, she's like, oh, and I want to have a look at Terapagos at some point. She's like, I don't know. It's that, I guess it's that borderline, like, her obsessive nature of wanting to know everything about terrestrialization and that phenomenon. It makes her come across really pushy and whatever else, but she's actually not a bad character.
Yeah.
She's just very like, I want to know.
She's not a bad person, just tunnel vision extremely due to her desire to know
Oh,
more,
she has
which led to severe bad situations.
She has an
Which is the
extreme
exact
case
same
of tunnel vision.
thing that happened with Kieran, like his desire and obsession.
Although back to Kieran, we mentioned the certain someone who catches Terapagos.
Yes.
Did anyone else click the dots when you were given that Master Ball?
Yes.
Yes,
yeah, you were given a Master Ball when you became champion. The prize from Serrano or whoever was to get a Master Ball. So Kieran had become champion prior to us, so he had a Master Ball.
Had a Master Ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why have I never made that realization?
Yeah.
That's how he had a Master Ball. Because a few people were like, wait, how does Kieran have a Master Ball? I'm like,
it's okay, Luke. I just made that connection as well. I just figured that he must have gotten it at some point, just was keeping onto it.
Yeah.
I never realized that. That never clicked in my mind.
As soon as I got that Master Ball, I was like, oh, fuck. That means Kieran has one.
Because I know lots of people are like, how has he got a Master Ball?
What if? Yeah. And I'm just here, like, as soon as I got one, it's just like, wait, that means Kieran's got a Master Ball. Kieran was really upset that we got Ogerpon. What if? And I'm just playing the game, normally just going, I'm not going to say my theories. I just want to keep playing the game. But in my head, it was just ticking and ticking. I'm just like, oh. And then it happened. I'm just like, oh shit.
How do you feel about, just to go back a bit, because we've gone straight into endgame discussion for a second here.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. No, I was just talking, I mean, don't get me wrong. The end game is massive, right? Awesome. I love I've got issues with how it went down, but overall cool. But we are sort of, we've just kind of bypassed the entire like terrarium.
I am so.
We're right here.
It's all around us, sweetheart. What do you mean? Where are you?
We're shouting over the balls. Like we're here.
We're in our respective area, right by the central, and we're just yelling through the gateways.
What do you think?
I was concerned when they showed. I was like, I like the concept. Is it going to make this space feel like
natural
and almost claustrophobic? Is it gonna is it gonna make it feel like, is it gonna feel like it should, or is it just gonna feel uncomfortable? Because
go on.
It was way bigger than I expected.
Oh, absolutely.
Like each biome is fucking massive.
Yep.
I was never concerned, and the reason for this is I didn't know what they were going to do with it, but the reason I was excited is because, there was, with the Teal Mask when it got added, obviously you have the story of everything and a few new Pokemon that are available, but then in the background, there are a lot more Pokemon that could now be transferred to the game. It's like, okay, cool, they can be transferred. why random Pokemon can be transferred, I don't know, but cool. This kind of gives a reason and a story as to why a lot more Pokemon are now available in the game, and rather just to go in, giving us a different story and going, by the way, you can also transfer all these Pokemon from other games, they give us a reason as to why. They've got this whole area where they've been building this ecosystem to get Pokemon from different areas, different regions, all into one. So it's kind of like a preserve kind of thing, but also trainers to battle and train and everything. And it gives a good reason for me, in my mind, as to why we now have a lot of access to Pokemon through home, previous games, but in a story perspective. So I was never worried. I was like, this is a cool way of doing it, rather than just, here's some home Pokemon you can now.
Well, even the starters, like even getting access to the starters, I'm glad it wasn't just you'll find starters. It was, okay, you raise the money to improve the diversity of the biome by upgrading it. That makes perfect sense. Now they can work on, you know, homing and breeding these starters here as well, and giving them a natural habitat to live in and coexist and everything else. So it was, yes, it was a very well executed from that perspective, you know, because we've got Pokemon from Alola, like Alolan forms and that, and we've got, you know, Pokemon that have come from all these different regions, and
we've got Hisuian Quillfish, for God's sake.
Well, exactly. You know, we've got Hisuian Quillfish, we've got Cleavor. Yeah, there's just the Cleavors and that. It's very well done from that perspective. It is very well done. I like the idea that they made the terastallization orb thing, and you find out how that actually, because it's amazing that you look at how pretty it is, and we find out that
the Terra Globe
above, and we find out that Briar just, you know, put some dirt in there from Paldea and some crystals from the pool, and it's like
water of the crystal pool and soil from Paldea. We have sparkly mud.
It wasn't even sparkly to begin with, it was just green. It wasn't until they added the crystals.
I was going to say, now it's
radioactive goop.
But just the way it's like, I just picture, you know, mixing it up in like a bowl or something. Pour some more in there, kind of thing. It's like, because she was the one managing it, which is the crazy thing. I'm like, well, no wonder she also wants to know more about this terastallization stuff. But at the time, we didn't really know it was Briar until much later in the story who was looking after that.
Does anybody here? It gives us an excuse to talk about the fact that we can fly now, which is something that I'm so glad has finally been added, because it's one of those where, you know, it's fun to be able to fly around and glide everywhere, but sometimes you're just not high enough for a mountain, you have to climb it, it gets annoying.
Yes.
But flying
absolutely.
So
PSA for everyone, you can invert your controllers in your settings once you unlock it completely.
Yes, you can.
Yes, it's a godsend.
Because it's so weird, like, talking from just basic game mechanics, the flying was the opposite to most other games and how you fly. And because they didn't invert the controllers, because I've always, when I'm flying a plane or whatever in a game, it's always you push down, you go up, you push up, you go down.
Yeah. Because when you push down, you're pulling back.
Yes.
Which lifts the nose. All that, no.
It makes sense, whereas the way it was in the game already was like, you push up and you go up. And 9 times out of 10, I'd be going the wrong way, because I'd be pushing down and I'd be going up, or, you know, down. And I'm like, why am I going down? They're meant to be going up, kind of thing, you know, like...
Oh, absolutely.
Has anybody here, because I know what's there, thought to fly to the top of
I have.
Oh, that was the first thing I did. I had to go up there. I was like, I just wanted to just look down.
As a
I didn't know there was items there.
As a competitive player, I was very pleased.
So have you been up there, Petal?
That's what I'm trying to get at. Luke cut out for me. The top fly to the top of what?
What
are we talking about?
The orb, the actual Terrastal orb in the top of the...
You can get up to it?
Yeah, you can land on top of it.
Oh, I gotta try something.
We're doing it right now. We get a live reaction.
It was one of the first things I did was like, I wonder how high you can fly.
Turns out very.
Very high,
just a pre-warning, it takes forever. It's so slow.
As a try-hard person myself, it's very worth it.
I like the 4 biomes they chose. I think that it gives enough diversity and locations for the different Pokemon. Some Pokemon were a little odd to find in their certain biomes because they just didn't fit. I think the polar biome did that for me the most, because going into the polar biome and just finding a Porygon was like, why is the Porygon here?
It's a weird addition.
Porygon was just...
Three of the stars in that biome, the 3 fire stars you can find in that biome, didn't really make much sense to me.
Well, I guess it's because they're...
in a cave, like, okay, yeah, sure, but Chimchars and Scorbunnies just running around in the snowy mountains?
Well, I guess it's because they can keep themselves warm, I suppose, is the thought process.
That was my thought on it, but it very much didn't feel right with first seeing
Okay,
it.
well, actually, now that we think about it, if you think about the two, right? Chimchar's got its tail,
Yeah.
right? Scorbunny makes sense, and there's a reason for that, because its feet generate heat. So it would never get cold feet, because its feet generate heat all the time.
Yes.
Well, Scorbunny will be great in a social situation.
But like that.
But
yeah, no, its feet generate heat. Because if you think about the other fire starters, Torchic would make no sense.
Yeah.
Tepig, not really.
No.
Chimchar, I think the only reason it gets away with it is because they're quite furry monkeys out of those three. Like, they're quite fluffy. Especially when you get to Infernape and they've got a lot of the fluffiness around their, they're quite hairy.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it could be that. And they've all got flames on them. Charmander is the only one that I could possibly understand. Cyndaquil being in a cave makes sense. That's fine. But yeah, I out of the three, I do agree with you that Chimchar's probably the weirdest of the three. But no, Scorbunny has a biologically sensible reason why it would be able to deal with the cold there, because its feet are constantly warm. That's why it keeps moving.
And there's Chespin in the Chargestone Cavern.
Yeah, why is Chespin in the Chargestone Cavern? I don't understand why.
That confuses me.
So for those who don't know, there's a cavern in there that mirrors basically the Chargestone Cave.
Chargestone Cave.
I loved it. When I found it, I loved it.
Yeah, same. It was such a hit of nostalgia
Which is
for me.
the other thing that I found fascinating when I first started exploring the terrarium. And I'm saying terrarium because it's not a terrarium, it's a terrarium. Because it's Terra. There's not double R, like as in a terrarium that you put plants
Lucky
in.
Beaz, I'm going to call it terrarium anyway, just to piss you off.
No, well, I'll just dub over you. Terrarium. No, but like, it's literally, it was jarring to think, okay, this is huge already. Then you find like Chargestone Cavern, you find the labyrinth, the torchlit labyrinth. Like all this underground space as well as what's above, like in the visible, the above ground area. It's like,
oh my god,
it's massive. Like, but yeah, Chargestone Cave.
Chikorita's been brought back into the game. I don't know.
What is with your Chikorita hate?
It's so stupid. It doesn't need to exist. It's pointless.
Oh, that's so Litwick.
Right. Okay. So
okay. All right. I'm not going to stand for this Gen 5 slander. The only Pokemon that I hate from Gen 5 is the fucking Timberline.
Nope, Stunfisk.
Yeah, I really hate that line.
Stunfisk is so much better than Timberluke.
I don't understand.
You say that back right now.
No, here's the thing, Luke. You have such weird tastes in Pokemon.
Hold up. Why?
Well, because like the ones that you hate don't deserve the hate.
Look at Stunfisk, man. Like, why are you telling me he doesn't deserve hate?
I mean, he's not great, but he's fine.
No. Okay.
One Pokemon I'm happy I didn't see. I just missuited this piece of shit. Because I went in there, I saw a logo, I was like, oh no.
Oh, yeah. So actually, yeah, funny enough, we didn't get the Alolan Meowth or Persian. No.
Right, okay. I don't. It's not that I really like it, but Alolan Meowth does get a little bit too much hate. I quite like it.
I love Alolan Meowth. Alolan Meowth is wonderful. It's the Persian I hate.
Yeah, it looks like it's run into a glass door.
No, it's literally if Garfield got stung by a bee.
my favorite joke about Alolan Meowth and the pose typically does in the artwork is just like they were asked to make Meowth more grey, but they misheard and accidentally made it more gay.
Like, Meowth and Persian were meant to be pets for like the high class. So,
what happened with the Galarian Meowth and Berserker?
I don't know. Okay,
I will die on this hill. I will die on the hill that Berserker's amazing, and I will not hear any slander.
So I don't mind Berserker, but what I'm saying is that, well, I guess it's like, I suppose you go with like Grimer and Muck, and then you got Alolan Grimer and Alolan Muck developed from original Grimer and Muck by they were sent to Alola to help with rubbish disposal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. I love the fact that that you get all these lore things that just randomly pop up. I love the Pokedex for that very reason, because you just get these random little nuggets of information where you're like, that makes so much sense.
Aside from learning exactly how murderous a Pokemon is.
Oh, I was reading
use those
Vibrava
Pokemon.
today, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so bad!"
Wait, I haven't read it. Excuse me,
it
I'm opening
vibrates
Pokedex
its
right now.
wings to stun its prey, and then once its prey is like immobilized, it then dissolves it with its digestive juices, is what it says. I was like, "What? Why is this a thing?"
There's no chill in the Indigo.
So that's the Violet. I've just opened it in Scarlet. Yeah, it's not that bad.
No, in Violet, it's literally like it dissolves it in its digestive juices. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, for Scarlet, it's like rather than using its underdeveloped wings for flight, it rubs them together, emitting ultrasonic waves to attack its enemies.
See, that's fine. That makes sense. But no, it's the what were we talking about before this? Before Luke started slandering bloody Chikorita.
Chespin, Charles, and Karen.
Yeah, Chespin and I was going to say that most Pokemon make sense. Like you got your Lapras in the icy water, that makes sense. They're adorable. I love when they get up on land and they're like scooching across the land. It's very cute.
Yeah.
You know, and then we got like Cubchoo, Beartic, etc. There's plenty. Duraludon makes sense there. That's fine. We can live with Duraludon being there because it also creates heat. Etc. And then you know,
types do also know to live in colder climates sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you know,
well, every Sword and Shield, it was also found in the snowy area.
But then you do get the outliers of like I said, Porygon is a weird thing to just find floating around in the cold area. Even to some degree, Solosis line being in that area is also a little strange.
I got so confused because that's one of the first places I went to the poll. I was like, I need to go here because I saw the last trailer. I saw that Alolan Vulpix and Ninetales were here. I was like, I just need to see these guys in the wild. And I went there and I just paused for a second. And I just see Porygon and Solosis just floating along. I was like, they're not ice types.
Yeah, it's just
here.
It was such a weird thing to see them in that area. Because, like, you look at all the others and go, like, everything else that's in that area, and you're like, okay, it makes sense. And then it's like, they just kind of threw them. But I guess out of the 4 biomes, that they're probably best off being there. Or maybe they were running low on what kind of Pokemon they wanted to put in there, and they're like, oh, we'll put these in here instead. Because it did feel like they were kind of, like, thrown in there kind of thing.
Yeah.
I love the fact that the coastal area is home to most of the Alolan stuff because that makes sense. Except for the ice types, obviously.
The coastal biome itself seems to be very Alola inspired and like based on Alola.
The canyon biome's cool. I like the canyon biome. I like the savannah. The savannah's cool. I like the choices they made with it. You know, I think it was very smart. I like how they divided up. Those wall things don't necessarily feel... They're so unnatural, but they don't feel out of place.
Yeah, because so obviously that you got the energy from all the crystals around it and everything, and having things look like crystals. The random blotches of crystals in random parts of the biomes are a bit weird.
There's probably a reason for it. I don't know.
Which we may find out in the epilogue. Who knows?
We might, we find Ditto blocks. That's a whole thing. I love Ditto blocks.
Yeah.
Ditto blocks are pretty great.
I love what they've done with the BBQ stuff.
Yes.
I think it's a great... It's given a reason for multiplayer again, because you can grind for BBQ on your own, but it's so much easier as a multiplayer thing, and it's a lot more fun as a multiplayer thing.
And you also get the group quests.
Yes, then you get the special group quests.
Well, it's not about the special group quests. Like, for me, as someone who's joined UBs a couple times now, having more options...
Yes.
You can just click and go and go. as I got called out a couple of times during your stream.
Yeah, because suddenly it was just like ding, ding, ding. I'm like, Jesus, all right.
Because you can look at them, you get some of the same one, so that's two.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you just get a list of extra more where instead of on your own, you just got 4.
What I also like as well is that how the PBQs are linked with, another way, talking about how adding Pokemon to the game in a way that makes sense, the legendaries.
Yes.
With the what's his name? Snacksworth? Which is a
Snacksworth.
weird name. But then you've got, his... I don't know how he's managed to meet all these Pokemon. I have no clue. But, you get these stories of where they are, where they were found, and it's not... Some of them are quite riddle-tastic as well. So, it kind of adds a bit more fun to it.
I have what seems to be considered a hot take in regards to the legend situation.
Oh no, here we go.
Oh, I know what this one is. Yeah,
and
know that I
go around on Twitter quite a bit.
Know that I agree with this hot take, by the way.
So
yeah, no, I also agree with this hot take.
There is a big uproar about the legend situation in Scarlet and Violet. I remember when we seen it before the games came out. I made some predictions in a couple of shorts that I did, and what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I said I don't want random legends. We've had them in so many games. They're starting to lose their allure because they're not legendary if they're in every single game that's ever bloody existed. And people are like, the uproar now is that they're shiny locked. And my attitude is, okay, I understand the ones that have only sort of appeared, for example, in Sword and Shield, such as Spectrier, Glastrier, Cubfu, those kind of ones. I completely understand that it would be cool if they weren't shiny locked. But in the grand scheme of things, how many fucking Zapdoses shiny do you need? Or Moltres or whatever? They've been in every game on the Switch.
Yeah.
And
with some easy ways to shiny hunt them, like the DA Adventures.
The Dynamax Adventures is a great way. BDSP has resets. You've got...
Sun and Moon has the Warpoles.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had all these legends over and over and over again. And the argument that I've seen on social media, and I know, yes, social media is a toxic place, but the argument that is on social media is that... two things. One, it shouldn't expect people to have other games. And it's like...
I remember one of those, but then you have to buy an earlier game in order to shiny hunt them. How can you force people to do that?
And it's like 90% of the people who shiny hunt are not, have been doing it for a while or have these other games. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
Secondly, at the end of the day, the argument has been, because these Pokemon are shiny locked, it's ruined the game. Is the legitimate comments that are coming out on social media. Now,
I don't know how it's ruined the game for them.
If I sit back and look at this objectively, that is not the reason why these games have issues. And let's be honest here, what did you want them to do? Everyone was like, oh, we should have got something like Dynamax Adventures. And it's like... But then everyone would have been like, well, this is just Dynamax Adventures. You're not being very inventive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was very much the Pokemon company would have been damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Oh,
yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah. No matter in any part of life, you can't please everyone.
I would have been perfect.
I bet you if the shinies were not shiny locked, people would complain. Oh, but now anyone can just go and get them.
Exactly.
Would have been the argument.
Well, that's the other thing, and this is the big thing that's been going on for quite a while recently. More so, I mean, it's always been going on, but it's become very prevalent lately. Is that there's a lot of gatekeeping in regards to shiny hunting, and shiny hunting's not for everyone. And I respect that. I don't sit here and go that the game should be catered around shiny hunting. And in the same vein, I don't think the game should be catered around just VGC, for example. It should be a balanced approach that, that everyone can find something to do with. And in the grand scheme of things, let's be honest here. When Pokemon first came out, its tagline was "Gotta catch 'em all." This is a collecting game.
Yes. And can we also point out as well, this is a kid's game. All these people that are complaining are like, teenagers and older and everything. It's like this. All
most of the time they're adults.
Yeah, all this exactly. All this power to you enjoying the game and wanting improvements and everything. Realistically, you're not the target audience.
Well, the other thing that makes me laugh is with the whole concept of it being a kids game versus, and look, there's nothing wrong with all of us still playing Pokemon, not even an issue. But the thing that gets me the most is that, I've seen people complain. I've had even people come into my chat saying, "Oh, I rinsed through the story in like 2 hours and blah blah blah," and then I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. What was your team, for example?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I brought my level 100 Arceus and I brought my blah, blah, blah. And it's like, so you're actually playing and I'm not saying that you can't play the game that way, but you're actually playing the game with a major advantage that not A, everyone has, and B, isn't the intended way to play the game."
Well, then, if you want to play it like that, fine, but then you can't complain about how the game
Exactly.
is easy.
You can't sit there and say it's too easy, because if they made it that made it the difficulty that the only way you could beat it is if you have your level 100 Arceus or whatever, then it would be stupid.
Indigo Disc saw this coming. And I want to talk about this because, for a bit of context, obviously we have the... if we go back onto the talk of the story for a minute...
Oh, I know what you're going to bring up.
So, the whole Indigo Disc idea, going through Blueberry Academy, you get invited, and you get involved in a league club, which has its own Elite Four, which is kind of like, for some reason, very, accepted to be... kind of like a lot of the lore in Blueberry Academy for some reason, even though it's just a club, but hey, that's a side thing. But they have their own Elite Four. Now, Drayden is decided, you know what, you can do these battles, because every Elite Four has a trial, essentially, before they do the battle themselves. And Drayden's trial is just a few battles with a few club members. However, you cannot use any other Pokemon apart from Pokemon you catch in the terrarium. Which is absolutely fantastic. And also, fuck you, Pokemon Company, because I wanted to use my VGC team for this reason. And you have targeted me and me alone. I'm in this picture and I do not like it. But
I also had my main team throughout the DLC.
I was lucky that I was about 50-50 split. I had some that I've had the whole way through, like my Dragonite, and I had a Alolan Exeggutor and Flygon and something else. Oh, Lapras. I was very lucky that way. And Archelodon. I had Archelodon.
Yeah.
But yes.
It's a good thing. I liked it. I liked that they did that. But man, I was not ready for it.
But not the backlash, but the complaining that got. It's like, well, that's just forcing us to do something we don't want to do. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, you're literally in this new area where all these new Pokemon go out there, experiment.
Exactly, and I think that was a brilliant move on Pokemon's behalf. I think that's fantastic. I think it was a wise move because. I've heard this argument in other games. People hate the idea of a roadblock. They want it to just flow straight through, where you just coast through. And gaming's not necessarily... Don't get me wrong, there are chill games where you want that, and you just want to, breeze through. I don't want all my games to feel like I've just kind of breezed through it in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that with Indigo. I did with Kitakami. Kitakami was a pushover in regards to battles.
Yes.
Unless you used and it wasn't even I used a super powerful team. I just brought my team I had with me at the end of the main game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, whereas I had to think a lot during Indigo Disc because a lot of and they said this in developing it, you're literally going to a school where they specialize in VGC style battles, literally. So the Pokemon and the trainers and that are they do give you that vibe. Like, I came across a Blissey that had bloody leftovers and was soft boiling and putting up shields and all this other shit. I'm like, oh god. Like, literally, it was, and Pokemon having leftovers, Pokemon having, oh god, I battled someone and they were hitting like a truck, and then come to find out they had a life orb.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that they did that.
And, it's just, it was really fun in that trial specifically that we mentioned about, like, when I first saw it, I was like, you know what? This has been targeting at me. It's fun, but, like, what am I going to do? And then it turns out I had a lot of fun over the next 30, 40 minutes, however long it took, building a new team.
Yep.
Did you know?
I like to have. It was great.
And I kind of partly wish that they really doubled down on it. But once you've defeated the trial, you can use whatever you want against Drayton.
Yes, and I will put my hands up. I did bring my VGC team back, because I was like, I want to have the best chance.
I did as well. I kind of brought back the team I'd been using prior to that, so it was like the Alolan Executor and then the other ones and that. But like, I kind of wish they doubled down and went, no, you've also got to beat Drayton with a team from the Terrarium, because I think people would have just lost their fucking minds. They would have been like, because he's kind of tough. He's not I found, out of all of them, I actually had more trouble with Crispin. I don't know why, but I had trouble with Crispin.
Lacey was my main issue.
I think Lacey was mine as well. Drayton was one of the easiest for me, but because I had a Flutter Mane that can Moonblast for everything, that's why.
Yes, they're here.
But Lacey was the one I had trouble with the most, honestly.
Oh, okay.
With me, I have, on my main team, I've got 2 fairy types on my team.
Mm-hmm.
I've got my Wackus Bonkers, my Tinkerton, and I have my Alolan Ninetales.
Nice.
We love Wackus Bonkers. Just saying that.
Alolan Ninetales, aka the Dragon Slayer.
Yeah, that thing's lethal against,
which is why I used it against Drayton. It wasn't because, this is just super effective and I can just breeze through this. It's one of my favorite Pokemon. I wanted to use them throughout the playthrough.
I just use a combo of Flutter Mane and Dragonite and won. That's my thing.
Yeah, fair.
Of course you did.
I'm not into BCG competitive battling. I tried my best against Beaz. I failed.
Yeah, but I'm a different trainer than I was 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's grown. I'm so proud.
Yes, he's 3 or 4 years older.
I'm interested in learning it. But there's a lot to get my head around.
Now Danny can't beat me, and every time I beat him, he gets more and more fired up to try and beat me again.
Yeah.
I mean, in all fairness, within the last year or so, me and Beast did a couple of battles, and he has beaten me as well. So I'm not saying like I'm a high level trainer, because I'm not, but it's fun to have someone who also understands, the whole battling aspect and team building and everything, because it makes it a lot more fun to do. If you have people if you're interested in going into the VGC side and battling, if you have other people around you that also have the same interest in doing it, rather than just, throw a team together so you can use yours against mine, it becomes a lot more fun. Especially if you don't take it seriously.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely
not.
I don't take shiny hunting seriously.
So... The other thing I want to point out about Drayton, and this was my experience, is that I felt like I was battling myself.
Yeah, fair.
Because he opened
Dragon Timers, man. He
opened with Dragonite and Flygon, which I had been using the entire time, and earthquaked me. I'm like, this is me! Stop it!
Yeah, it felt like fighting when I was getting constantly extreme speeded.
Extreme speed and Thunder Punch was the other one that made me laugh, because the Dragonite had Thunder Punch, and then he brought out a Haxorus, and then he brought out the Archelodon and all these other... I'm like, what is happening?
It very much felt like a U team.
Yes. It was, apart from obviously, because the one thing I really kind of liked, it was really a cool little thing, was the way each of them brought a starter from a different region.
Yes.
And I love that. So he had the Sceptile, I believe.
It was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apart from
Which
that,
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's a nod to its Mega Evolution. But it was like
also weak to Ice type, but hey.
Yeah, well, that too. But it
My
was like
Ninetales had fun.
It was bizarre. It was such a bizarre experience, because I literally felt like I was battling myself, which you would think would make it easier, but it wasn't, because every strategy worked against me as well. So I was like,
you got to see what you had brought to others.
And I just want to say the representation of Dragonite in the DLC was great, because Drayton had it, Kieran had it. I was like, oh yeah. But yeah, no, it was phenomenal. I like the other thing I'll say about in general across the entire, including the base game, a lot of memorable characters throughout.
Yes.
You know, like there are certain, not all of them, but there are certain gym leaders you immediately, you know, awesome. Larry. I was gonna say
Larry,
our Lord and Savior, Larry. You know, and that was the thing I was going to bring up is that you can do the coaching thing in the post game, and you bring in coaches, and to start off with, you can bring in the gym leaders from Paldea, and I, of course, I'm like, oh, Larry, my man. Brought Larry in, and he made reference to the fact that during the Elite Four Pokemon League interview you have with Rika, I picked him as my favourite gym leader, and he goes, I got told that you were my favourite, that I was your favourite gym leader. I can't believe that. I'm like, oh my god, it took what I said from earlier in the game and put it here, and it was mind-blowing. I can't believe, something so simple, but it was like, oh my god, my actual answer has played into later in the game.
I like to think that was planned from the beginning for that to happen.
Because that was so good. I loved that. I'm like, oh, I love that. Because he was like, oh, you know, I don't understand why I'm just a regular Joe and that, but thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm like, oh my god.
I gotta say, I love the answer he gives though, because like, are you okay? Are you over it? I know a park we can go to like unwind, stress down. Because why would you pick me?
He literally, he's every bit of his dialogue is so like the 9 to 5 working drag kind of thing. Like, it's literally him like, oh, I know where we can get a good, you know, food or whatever and blah, blah, blah. Like, it's literally that. And I love all the interactions you can do with the gym leaders and that there. But, you know, you've got memorable characters like the gym leaders. And even the Elite
Also,
Four.
the fact that gym leaders interact with each other can bring two in.
Yes, they do. There's a lot of story there. There's a lot of story on how they all know each other and interact with each other. And I had an amazing interaction between Rhyme, who I think is... I thought Rhyme was amazing beforehand. Hearing their interactions with everyone in the coaching thing is just hilarious.
Hearing Rhyme's interactions with Grusha was...
yes, the stuff with Grusha and the stuff with Larry was very funny. And apparently later on, I haven't done this yet, but apparently Danny was telling me... I think it was Danny. You can bring Rhyme and the sister Time in together, and Time calls Rhyme fat. You put on weight.
Oh, damn!
She's such a bitch. It was like, I was like, oh my god, because there was even a reference that Rhyme goes, oh, you don't want to mess with my sister and all this. I'm like, oh god. I'm thinking, well, yeah, you do think back to when she made Clavel write that apology letter in the main game.
You can tell that Rhyme didn't take things too seriously in times when it's like, okay, Rhyme, bring it in. We need to make sure that we're adults. And Rhyme's like, no, I'm not going to continue having fun.
Well, the fact that...
I love that dynamic that they have.
Because she took over... Rhyme... Here's a bit of backstory. I know we're going off on a tangent here. A bit of backstory with Rhyme is that Rhyme took over from Time as a gym leader. Time was the gym leader in Montenevera.
Mm-hmm.
But Time was a rock type trainer, I believe.
Yes, rock type.
And so
Larry helped remodel.
Larry was the one that helped remodel the gym.
I love that little bit of information.
Yeah.
Larry, you are so overworked, my man. You really need
How
more
many
overtime
jobs
pay.
does he have?
And he's like, oh, I'm glad you got me to do that because that was my only job for that particular thing for the entire year. I was like, oh my god. So yeah, like it was like, oh, this is mind blowing. The other thing that I just had pointed out to me is that another reference that Time makes gives Rhyme shit about the fact that she's not wearing the sweater that she'd made.
Aww.
She's like, you're not wearing the sweater I made you. I'm like, it's like a knitted sweater or something. I'm like, you look at Rhyme. Does she look like the kind of person who'd be wearing a knitted sweater?
Yeah. I'm going to fully admit, first playing through the main game, I thought Time and Rhyme were the same person. I thought they were just alter egos.
Oh, you know see, now you were, I suppose we were a bit...
moonlighting at a gym leader. and Rapstar in their off time around, doing the school teacher stuff.
Yeah.
And
But
I
then you
realized
find out
that
they're
I was
like twin sisters.
I was like, oh.
It's so funny.
Well, next you're gonna tell me that Clive and Clavel are the same person.
They're not.
Nah,
they're
they're
not.
not. Nah. Rumor has it that if you battle Clavel, though, he gives you Clive's wig.
What did he do to Clive?
It's what happened if you get expelled.
No. Oh my god. But yeah, no. So that there's a lot of that. There is a lot of post game random stuff you can do in Indigo Disc, and I think that's where they've really excelled in this DLC versus Kitakami.
You know what? There's one thing I worry about in this thing, though, because it was, they did okay in Isle of Armor. It was a little bit underwhelming, but it was okay in Sword and Shield. And then Crown Tundra kind of blew it out of the park with, the story, the Pokemon you can find, and the Dynamax adventures. It's kind of happened again here with Teal Mask being okay, but then it being a build-up and Indigo Disc being fantastic.
Yes.
I don't want them to get into a trend of Part 1, do 2-part DLCs. Part 1 can get away with being okay because Part 2 is going to bring it up. I worry about Part 1 being kind of left and forgotten in future Pokemon games.
It's kind of like they keep, instead of you want it to be
the middle child.
Yeah, it's that bridging piece, but you don't want them to get to the point where the bridging piece is just kind of an afterthought to tie the amazing ending to the main story to the amazing ending of the DLC in general.
I want Part 1 of a DLC to want me to play Part 2.
Yes, you want to play Part 2 because Part 1's kind of just left you in the limbo.
Yeah, not just to bridge a gap. I want to be excited, and Teal Mask was okay doing that.
At least we don't have to pay for each DLC.
There is that. The other thing is people get very upset about having to pay for DLC for Pokemon, and I don't get it because they'll quite happily pay DLC for any other game. And it's like, I actually like the idea of that we get more content via this way. I didn't know if I would when they first started doing DLC. I was like, DLC for Pokemon, is it going to work, kind of thing. But the idea of, X amount of Pokemon in the base game and then we get more Pokemon in the second one and the more Pokemon, I think it gives the games longevity in their development.
But then you've also got the worry of, are they going to skip out on longevity in the base game because of the DLC feature?
Well, there is that, which is something I really want to sort of touch on towards the end of this is the issues that have plagued this game from the get-go. But there are, and they are glaring in the nature of what they are. But I guess there's a lot we could talk about with Indigo Disc. The concept of going to the school and doing everything you do there, and that they've developed their own little league and everything else is really cool. Love that. Love the fact that a lot of the students and especially the Elite Four are tied to gym leaders and that from like Univer, and that makes sense. Because, of course, they would send their children to a school for battling. Makes perfect sense.
To an elite school, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That all checks out. What they did with Kieran in this, perfect. I think that was. They wrapped up Kieran's story the way it should have been wrapped up. However, the end of the DLC didn't feel right in the grand scheme of things for me. Yes, they wrapped up Kieran's villain arc, if you want to call it that, and to a satisfactory end. I think it was good, but I felt like the end of the overall story was like, here's Terapagos, caught, done. We spent for the whole thing being called the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero, the whole DLC package, we really didn't spend a lot of time in Area Zero.
No, we didn't. And honestly, that new Underdeath felt way too small.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
It was honestly a lot bigger than I expected it to be.
It was bigger in the I didn't know we were going to get an Underdepths.
No, I had no clue. I had no idea.
I will admit, I watched the final trailer. They did then boost it a bit with that tree, although I haven't gone back yet.
I need to go back because I found one crystal they couldn't break during the story.
I've managed to break through that crystal. I know what's behind it.
Oh, I know about this as well. We can do that after recording, Pedal. It leads to a really good place.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's a for the lack of a better term.
I don't know how to feel about it being worded like that.
There's a loot room. Is probably the best
I
way.
saw that much when I looked inside.
But yes, it's good. It's worth doing. We can have a look at that. I haven't been back down there either. But I don't know. There was just, and I guess that comes down to also the whole thing I have with Briar, for example. And also the fact that whilst it's cool, unless someone specifically goes back to the crystal pool with Terrapagus, you wouldn't know to do that.
You know,
That's very true.
The funny thing is, and having that interaction at the Crystal Pool with Terrapagus, that only happened because I was in the area and Riley was like, "Just go to this area, see what's going on." We had both of us had no idea, and just throw Terrapagus out, see what happens. Go to a certain area, and then a cutscene started playing. I was like, I don't know what's going on right now. I had no clue.
It was a surreal moment that
I kind of thought the story was going to continue from there. I thought us giving that book to the professor, we were going to have some weird goddamn butterfly effect stuff.
Well, yes and no.
It's a weird situation with that one because you're giving him this stuff to do with the underground area or the
underdepths.
Underdepths, yeah.
And I can see that they're trying to make it... Okay, so he's come back from some point in time. It's obviously prior to some of the events in the game. But it's not...
Because they don't know Koraidon/Miraidon. They just know them by the name used in the original books.
Iron Serpent or whatever.
And Winged King.
Winged King. But then... As Luke's kind of and obviously and Riley has sort of indicated is that by giving him that book, how does that affect him now going back to the time he was?
See, I brought that's what and this was brought up somewhat before, but I can explain that because it's actually explained if you look through the notes in the Underdepths. It has happened. It's a closed time loop. Nothing will change because those exact same events has already happened.
I guess it's us seeing that moment happen, even though it's happened.
We know that it's written down. We know it's in notes, but seeing that we're a part of that makes it quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't know it was us, so we didn't know what book it was. But this does specify in the notes that the person got teleported from the Underdepths somehow to the Crystal Pool in a land they didn't understand, but it's Rick of Sulphur, which meant to leave Crystal Pool of the volcano Kitakami.
But then,
and there they met a kid who gave them a white book.
So all this time going through the main story of the game, you interact with the professor. The professor already knows who you are, which is terrifying.
Well, that's where but that's no, not necessarily. It's a weird situation in that it's a loop. But it's looped in a way. It's looped in a way that the professor doesn't know who we are until he meets us, but we are the reason why it's happened because we've given him the book.
And also, we appear to be the reason why Koraidon/Miraidon is named that because we tell the professor the name of it.
Yes.
I didn't even think about that because
it's like this because at least for me playing Scarlet, so I was like, so this is Winged King. Like it's like. Oh, I just call it Koraidon. It's like, Koraidon, is it? And so,
it's
when
such a bizarre...
Complete Time Machine brings back the first one of that, she's like, that's a Koraidon. That's what I was told. I've seen one of these.
It's a really weird situation It
so
helps explain how these things happen, but then it also makes you question how these things happen as a result of that.
I mean, it's one of the, three possibilities of time travels now. A big closed loop makes it the easiest because anything you travel back in time or travel forward in time and do has already happened in a timeline. Nothing changes. That's how it was always meant to go. But yeah.
But yeah, it's a fascinating thing. But it's a shame that is not alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
because it's such a critical moment too. Like watching that, I was like, holy shit. Like that was mind blowing. I was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Question.
I mean, that could also be why the AI was so eager to let us keep the right Pokemon the first time it, broke with the Professor back in the base game. Because it knew we were or maybe the Reckoners knew that we were the one with it.
Oh, yeah.
My brain hurts.
That's why they always say, like, keep traveling with it and make,
Yeah, it's such a weird thought. But there's a lot of that. I guess there's a lot of that because the whole time machine thing that they use, because those Pokemon that are the paradoxes are not necessarily from the past or the future. They're just...
It's still not known whether they are like just created by this machine or imagination, or if they are actually from the past and future.
Exactly.
Given that it works on terrestrial energy, and we see what Terracos use terrestrial energy to go, transcend time, it's a strong possibility that they are actual past and future Pokemon.
They may end up being that, yeah. And that's the other thing that we've gotten out of this, is that we didn't know that Terrapagos could do that until we seen that secret cutscene.
Yeah.
Which is just absurd that's like, there's no alluding to that other than the notes. But even then, the notes are kind of vague until you get that cutscene and then go, oh shit, that's what they meant in the book, in the notes downstairs, in the underground area. It's like the underdepths. It's like the pieces were there, but they don't. The flaw here in the storytelling is that it doesn't go, you need to go to the crystal pool, or some little chain of events that make you go, I need to go to the crystal pool.
I mean, I suppose it hints somewhat to it by, the notes, and we then get the white book if you connect the dots.
Yeah.
But that's a very obscure way of doing it, especially for a kid's game. Like, that's the other thing.
I didn't connect the dots until I actually got the cuts. It was like, oh, I'm the one giving the book. Oh, yeah. Okay.
But I felt
the professor in the epilogue.
I don't know. Maybe that's why we go back to Kitakami.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know much about the epilogue at all, except that Arvin, Penny, and Nimona are back for it, which is cool.
I'm so down for it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad Penny's back. I love Penny. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. Like I said, I don't feel like the end of Indigo Disc had the same level of impact as what the main game's end had.
No, but I enjoyed it.
That's very true.
I think. I think I enjoyed the end of Indigo Disc more than other people, but I just liked seeing the development of Kieran and what he became.
I liked it, but I felt like the Kieran stuff was done perfectly. The ending to Kieran's story made sense. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, Kieran's storyline was perfect.
The overall Area Zero stuff, unless the epilogue does something really fantastic, the overall Area Zero stuff kind of felt like a means to an end to finish Kieran's story, as opposed to the fact that the entire game has been revolving around the terrestrial phenomenon.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I understand what you're saying there. We've got like more of information as to what the terrestrial phenomenon is, but not necessarily its origins.
How do you feel about the stellar terrestrialization stuff?
Okay, right. I'm going to quickly say my piece because, I have the blessing / curse, because it is both, to anytime I play a new Pokemon game or find a new Pokemon or, just do anything related to Pokemon games, my brain goes straight to, okay, think about things in a competitive mindset.
Yeah.
So
which this is very much a competitive... This is going to hit competitive in an interesting way.
So, in my opinion, in that sense, Stella as a terrestrialized typing initially was like, oh, okay. So, from what I understand, because I don't know too much about it, but from what I understand is the description we were given was every type gets a boost but once. So it seems to benefit Pokemon more that have very mixed movesets. The Pokemon that will be are either choice itemed with a lot of coverage or life orbed or assault vested. But with it only being once and it not changing your defensive typing, it's only really going to work on Pokemon with offensive, move sets and item sets and all that. Where you are going to be using different types. Otherwise, I don't really see much of a use for it, personally.
I my first thought seeing it is I want to put this on a Libero Cinderace was my first thought.
Wow,
Oh,
okay.
God.
That is bullying.
Jesus, okay, that could be interesting.
Hi. I liked my hidden ability Cinderace back from Sword and Shield.
Yeah,
because-
Greninja has called it wants his ability back.
it's fascinating. Yeah, it could be an interesting.
I think it will see use, but I don't think it will see that much use. I think
Yeah.
terrestrializing how it works is too strong of a gimmick right now to be replaced with a different extra typeless type, essentially. But your defensive typing doesn't change. So with a lot of offensive Pokemon, you'll find a lot of them have different terrestrialized types to not only have a boost in a different type of move, but also block a different move.
Yeah.
You'll see Ghost Terrestrializing to block Rapid Spins, or Grass Terrestrializing especially to block Amoonguss Spores, for example. So I don't think, while it has its uses, I don't think it's many.
I think it's going to be very.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
I think it's going to be very niche in how it's used.
Mm.
If you can use it and use it effectively, it could be powerful, but using it effectively is going to be an interesting scenario in itself.
It's probably going to be used more in singles than it will in VGC.
Yes, I think it'll be in singles. It could be very dangerous in singles.
Certain Pokemon will probably do well with it. Iron Valiant comes to mind. I think that would be really good with Stellar type because you can get your Psycho Cuts, your Leaf Blades, Night Slash.
Spirit Break, Night Slash.
Yes.
Pokemon like that with variety movesets would be fantastic.
It would be perfect for Angel.
I was going to say it'd be great for your
absolutely
Absol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Luke said, like I've told you this before, Han, but yeah, I see the Stellar that was purely offensive.
Yes.
Translation. Because with the others, you can translate to cover your own weaknesses by switching to another type or removing one of your types of your dual type
Whereas
Pokemon.
this
But
doesn't
with this
allow
one,
that.
it's just pure all-out attack.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting. I love the look of it. I think it's.
It looks
fabulous.
I love the little Terrapagos on the crown.
I was going to say, I love the crown is actually a Terrapagos.
That was adorable.
The legendary itself is great. I love Terrapagos as a design. I think it's very pretty. I think that the one that's not in a shell, like the small with that you can see all his legs properly in that, is amazing.
The base form.
The base form.
Yeah.
I love
is my favorite. Of the
I love the fact when you auto battle, it turns into the full-on turtle glowy thing. So it transforms every time it attacks something, and then turns back into the turtle, like with the base form. Love that. It didn't.
No, I did that. I haven't auto battled with it.
It didn't get much screen time for a thing that is called the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero.
It's hinted at, reference to, alluded to many points, but yeah,
it
didn't get much of the actual time once it was revealed.
For example, the Evil 3 or whatever, the Loyal 3, those three got more screen time than what poor old Terrapagos did in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad because, the DLC was built up around this hidden treasure and we've seen it for like 5 seconds in the grand scheme of things, but...
I do want to talk about its ability because I've just double checked it and I didn't realise how good of an ability Terrestrial Form had.
Oh god, yeah.
So essentially, in a way, it's multi-scale.
Yes.
But every move's not very effective when it's 4 HP.
Yes. Its signature move is cool too.
But yeah, with how little we see Terrapagos, I made a joke when I started Indigo Disc. I was like, the hidden treasure of Area Zero is actually the friends we made along the way, yeah? And it really felt like that at the end.
It did. It did actually feel a bit like that because the actual treasure... Like, I also... A bit of a... The thing is, we all were alluding to the fact that, is the Indigo disc the name, like a secret name or something for Terrapagos? No, it literally was a disc.
It's just a disc.
CD.
It's like, here's a CD to put in there so you can go downstairs. Like, that's literally what it is.
Indigo, so
I'm
we
like,
called it the Indigo disc.
like,
Oh,
what?
before you go, let me hand you this handy plot device.
Like, it was. I'm like, so Terrapagos isn't the Indigo disc? Like,
I mean, it's indigo colored, it's disc Pokemon, but yeah.
Yeah,
it was literally like, here's a disc.
It's just be sure not to delete my my S Club 7 music from the disc player.
It
I
was
want
just...
to keep the music on it. No, it's
This is our soundtrack for the travel. Gotcha.
So, overall...
the start.
But one final thing with Terrapagos, though, just and the story in general. The final battle against Terrapagos when Kieran eventually joins in, amazing.
Oh, I love that, and I love Terrapagos' music.
Yeah, and they're constantly
Yes.
swapping terror types with Terrapagos, so you have to keep adapting. You know,
I...
like, which type did it turn into? What works now? What does not work?
That was phenomenal. Like I said, I loved aspects of the end of the story. It just, I don't know, just a piece was missing. I don't know whether, if I feel as if that cutscene with the professor, if somehow was tied in towards the end of that, rather than us having to go find it randomly, it probably would have made a little bit more sense in my head, because I finished the game and then did that cutscene with the professor the next day, and I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense, because then you get another ending to the game with a opening screen and his copy of the Violet or Scarlet book, or her copy of the Violet or Scarlet book, on the table at sunset
Yeah.
on the title screen, which is like, okay, we're done. And then they're like, we have an epilogue. But like...
It feels a bit disconnected, is what you're saying.
It's very disconnected. It just, like...
It does.
But overall, storytelling has been quite strong the entire time. I think Scarlet and Violet in general has got one of the strongest stories that they've told in a Pokemon game. I felt connected to a lot of the characters. I felt there were moments of like, holy shit, this is incredible. The biggest moment for me still is the final fight with the professor. That scene was mind-blowing, because the game went from go and do gym battles, go and make sandwiches and look for big Pokemon, go and, you know, battle the rogue teams in the school, yada yada yada. Suddenly we're in the depths of hell and the professor has turned rogue. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Surprise, I'm not the real professor, I'm an AI.
exactly, they're a robot. And then, oh god, they've suddenly brought all these Pokemon from some fucking place and starting to beat the shit out of us with them. Wait, there's two Miraidon things? What the hell? Like, it was so well done, and then, you know, there were stumbling points throughout the DLC, but overall it was pretty good. It was pretty solid, and it was good. I had a theory, but now I'm kind of like, I don't think it's going to happen. Because I always found it weird that they grouped the DLC under the heading of the hidden treasure of Area Zero. And I had this mindset that maybe there's more content coming to it in a second little package. Because it seems weird that they put those two lots of DLC under a proper heading, which they didn't do that with Scarlet and with Sword and Shield. They were just two separate DLCs. This was literally part 1 and part 2 of the hidden treasure of Area Zero. But I don't think we're going to get that.
There's still more with Area Zero.
There
is.
is.
One plaque above the Zero Lab.
Absolutely.
And that markings in the grass in the cave where you can find Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon.
Yes, there is a hell of a lot of interesting things that we don't ever talk about that are in Area Zero.
The plaque especially because it marks off all these towns in Paldea, but it was there when the original expedition went down.
The other side of that whole scenario, the whole story, everything else, is that crater had to be created by some sort of incident.
I am very personally, I am down for the theory of the X and Y and Paldea. Kalos and Paldea.
I knew
I'm sorry.
As soon as you mentioned Kalos, I'm like,
I mean, it could have been. It could have been impacts of the ultimate weapon.
because
I thought the war was against Galar, not Paldea.
Yeah. I guess
Oh, is it confirmed that was against Color?
Yeah, it was Kalos, yeah. It was Kalos.
Oh.
It was Kalos and Galar. Because there's references to it in Sword and Shield somewhere.
There's the markings
It's been ages.
that you find in the cliffside and
Yes.
other markings as well that you find reference. Obviously it's reference to Dynamaxing, but also the weapon that was used as well.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
there
it's
we
been
go,
a
then.
while since I've looked at that stuff. So I will
Yeah.
take back my theory.
But I still think that there's obviously some sort of incident, some sort of, whether it's naturally occurring or man-made occurring, caused obviously this crater. And that's where the origins of the terrestrial phenomenon seem to have come from, is that whatever impacted that crater is... We don't know what that is. We actually have never really gotten much information on that.
Rayquaza just fell asleep while doing a lap around the world.
It's just a meteorite that took out all dinosaurs.
And then they just sort of shook it off and went, oh shit, gotta get out of here, hang on.
Like, did anyone see that? No. Okay, well, everyone around here is dead. Okay, good.
But yeah, no, it's an interesting one. So overall, I think it was good. I don't know, I think Scarlet and Violet was good. We're gonna touch on the ugly side.
Fix your game. Right, okay. I mean, you can explain it in a second, but it's right to question Game Freak and everything about how the game runs and why there doesn't seem to be. Obviously, we don't know what's going on in the back end of everything. There doesn't seem to be much work being put in to try and make the optimization better. But however, it's also not. It sounds like copium, but it's also not stopping me playing the game. A lot of people are on both sides. There are people that make it sound much better and much worse than it actually is. But it is a problem.
Here's the thing, and this is where I sit on a very fine line in regards to this situation with the glaring performance issues with Scarlet and Violet. I've never once denied they exist.
Mm-hmm.
They exist. Mm. It's hard to, and especially certain areas. We've even made the jokes. Casseroya lag tree thickets. There's all these things because those areas are chronic for it. Then we thought, oh, maybe they'll patch it in the first DLC. Well, no, because when you go into Kitakami, the grass causes problems, and looking at the mountain...
Looking at Oni Mountain.
Which is really hard, considering Oni Mountain is, like, the middle of the map. Yeah. But, and even in the terrarium, I haven't had quite as much as Kitakami, but there are still areas where it gets a little janky.
Coastal.
Yeah, coastal.
The coastal in the water, yeah.
Certain parts of the polar, I get the issue as well. It's just
weather conditions cause it.
Yeah.
Like weather conditions are really chronic for it. Like the sandstorms in Asado cause a problem. The winds, the blizzards in Glaciado cause a problem.
I will say, it goes to show how much of an issue this can be, because I had a moment of pure 60 frames per second gaming that shocked me so much I took a clip of it on my Nintendo Switch, because it felt wrong to play the game so smooth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was during flying as well, so I think I was flying up a mountain and looking around, and the fact that everything felt so smooth, it felt like I was playing like an unreleased version that the public didn't get. It was so weird.
You know what I think it is, though? I think in that case, and correct me, I could be wrong, I'm not a game developer. It's got a lot to do with the rendered distance and what's being rendered in. If you're flying high up enough, all those finer details, like the blades of grass, all the leaves on trees and that, all the Pokemon and that, aren't rendering in. And because you're looking at everything
swaying in the wind.
Exactly. Because you're looking at everything from a bit more of a distance, everything would be running a lot more fluid and smoothly. And I think that's where they've made the mistake, is that I don't know what their balancing is or their performance balancing is in regards to that, but there are things that are taking up valuable resources that probably shouldn't be. We know for a fact, it was revealed that the entirety of the water in Paldea
Well,
is active all the time.
I'm gonna bring I have to say though, because I looked that one up again, and it has shown that entire article we went through and checked might be completely fake.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a bulk of it loaded because like you can physically see it. Like if you accidentally clip through, there is a lot of stuff that shouldn't be rendered. Yeah. But yeah, even if that's been over exaggerated, there is a certain degree of stuff that has been rendered in when it shouldn't be because it's not visible. I would assume that 101 in gaming is that if it's not visible and it's not a mechanical thing to make things operate, it shouldn't be it shouldn't be taking performance. Because it shouldn't be there. It should only be visible when you trigger seeing it. So you shouldn't be able to see framework behind a mountain because you wouldn't be able to see behind a mountain.
Then you've also got to have it loaded ready for when you do go over that mountain as well. So it's kind of like the base of at what point do you start rendering and loading it in?
Well, see, I guess
that's where the render distance comes in because it gets the landing ready, I suppose.
I guess the other side of things is, and this is the thing I said from the get-go, and I said even before this was announced, I said we didn't know, we weren't ready for Gen 9. As much as I love Scarlet and Violet, and I do, we weren't ready for Gen 9. I think if they took the approach that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, especially Tears of the Kingdom took, they finished the game and then went, right, it's not going to come out for another year. We're polishing it.
Super Mario Bros. Wonder did the same thing.
If they had done that with this game would have ran a lot better. Because you look at the style of environment we've got in Scarlet and Violet and you compare it to games like Tears of the Kingdom, they're not that much different in regards to what kind of landscaping and that you're dealing with. And there is a lot more complex stuff going on in Tears of the Kingdom than there is in Scarlet and Violet. Combat systems and bloody, all of that kind of stuff on top of lots of different creatures spawning in as well, which is what Pokemon has. So it makes you wonder.
I do think it can be unfair sometimes to compare Scarlet and Violet to other games like that because, but a lot of people say, look at how the game looks and what Tears of the Kingdom does and what Scarlet and Violet does, and not from a graphical point, but like not in a performance sense, sorry, but a graphical sense. And then I think it's important to remember that not every game is going to look as impressive as Tears of the Kingdom because through a decision that's been made on purpose. Every game has different art styles. So you're not going to have a Pokemon game that a lot of people say, oh, there's no excuse. We have Tears of the Kingdom on Switch. Games like that, they look fantastic. And, there are certain textures that look a little bit blocky in the distance or whatever for Scarlet and Violet. But if I had a Pokemon game that looked like Tears of the Kingdom, I genuinely don't think I'd enjoy it as much.
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about the art style. I'm talking about pure performance.
Yeah.
Because the scope of the open world and the scope of what base stuff happens in Tears of the Kingdom versus what happens in Scarlet and Violet are not actually that much different. They're both open world. They both share very similar environments. Yeah, they've got slightly different art styles, obviously. But, the core concepts of what they are not that much different. So it makes you wonder why Scarlet and Violet struggles to run on the Switch, but Tears of the Kingdom doesn't have those flaws. It doesn't lose frames. It doesn't stutter. It doesn't have those weird wall glitches and characters just wandering off and floating bags like I've seen and just weird shit like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it seriously just comes down to the polish was not applied.
The
final going over and really going, right, let's put that last layer of polish, make sure that there's no, issues or glaring issues, because there's a difference between a bug that could be revealed by gameplay versus I walk into the first area and it's stuttering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it doesn't get any better for the most part, whether it's on an original Switch or even on an OLED.
I don't know what the way forward is because, again, like we mentioned before, there's no way for Game Freak to win because no matter what decisions they make, they're going to impress other people and piss off the rest. So it's like, what kind of decisions can you make to, I mean, as a performance thing, that should be something that should be monitored anyway. So
Well, the other thing is that they are putting patches out, but the patches aren't
fixing the main issues that
they're so few and far between, and when they do come out, they seem almost
lackluster,
irrelevant for the most part. Like they're not actually that important what they're patching up.
I mean, after the very first patch, I did notice some improvements in Electric Thicket and the Lake, and then that improvement was gone the next update.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. And part of that was, rather than address the performance issues, they reduced the number of Pokemon that was spawning in there.
Yeah, but also to understand, like, it helped, and then whatever they did seemed to be gone with the next patch they did.
My other concern is, and this is the thing that people who don't do their research and assume that throwing Game Freak under the bus is the answer. It's not just Game Freak that's at fault here, and if anything, Game Freak's not that much at fault. The problem is that Game Freak contracted or have an agreement to make Pokemon games from the Pokemon Company themselves. And the Pokemon Company themselves are the ones that dictate exactly who, what, where, why, how, when. And so if they have a realistic... or if they
especially the when.
Yes, exactly. And if they have in their heads where they want or when they want these games to come out, they're just going to go, yeah, we want this out. And if it's got to go out, it's got to go out. And I think part of that is, I'll be honest with you, and I love the Pokemon, I love Pokemon through and through, but there is some greed there. There is some greed of making money. And I know they're in the business of making money, but then there's always that mindset of, you keep doing this, you're going to damage your brand. And it would take a lot for them to completely destroy Pokemon, because it's, it is... But I think that's the problem here, is that they think they're bulletproof no matter what they put out.
If that's what they started on now, is this slippery slope that could very easily and quickly turn something that hurts themselves.
Because if we get a Gen 10 game, or even a remake, or even an Arceus-style game in the next 12 months, 2 years... which is not impossible. My concern is that they're going to take what people have liked about this, but then not address the issues that caused problems and people didn't like the performance issues.
Yeah.
And those performance issues and just slapping Pokemon onto anything is going to be the go-to moving forward. Because, like I said, if this game ran at and I'm not even saying I don't want it to look real. That's the other thing that drives me nuts with people.
Yeah.
I don't want my Pokemon game to look like I'm walking down my street. I want my Pokemon game to still have those cartoony aspects. I think that Scarlet and Violet is teetering on that fine line of being just enough, but if it goes any further than that, it would feel odd. I don't want to be playing Detective Pikachu the movie in my Pokemon game. Is basically.
I don't want to see that, Jigglypuff. I don't want to see that, Mr.
I don't want to see, no. The only way I'd accept it is if, in some weird alternate dimension universe, Pokemon Company got a company well versed in making horror games, make a horror game in that style.
What? Where is this coming from?
This sounds great with all the ghost Pokemon.
Exactly. Even Pokemon like Beedrill. Bro,
yeah.
Running at you, you are crying and running.
Not the bees!
Not the bees!
But, like, I guess my mindset is that I stand by the fact that we should not have had We shouldn't have had Gen 9. We shouldn't have had Scarlet and Violet until now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That extra time making sure that the kinks were worked out would have probably made this one of their, if not their best Pokemon game they've ever released.
I still stand by the fact that it is.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I think it's very much up there for me.
Because I was
good, but I am not giving this the title of the best Pokemon game so far.
As far as main series goes, I think I'm comfortable saying it because, I still have a very soft spot for the Gen 4 games, that's no secret. But I also love the Gen 5 games, they were also top quality. And the Gen 6 remakes of Ruby and Sapphire were also fantastic. Gen 9, what it does well is not only does it have the Pokemon experience of going around, exploring, seeing what's around, but also a killer story as well.
Oh, absolutely.
That kept you sucked in no matter what happened from beginning to end. Even Gen 4, a generation I would defend to the death, also had weird story and pacing issues.
Yes.
So it's just like...
This didn't have... the other thing I guess people need to take into account is that this is their first open world Pokemon game.
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Legends Arceus was almost there and was a testing ground for a lot of things. But this is their first open world, fully explorable, more or less free roam, because once you open up the area, you can basically go and do what you want for the most part in any order. There's not a lot of, you must do Gym 1, Gym 2, Gym 3, da-da-da-da-da. You can just go and do shit.
The only limit is the levels of the Pokemon in the area is going to. Like, the further you go, the higher they get, so...
Yeah, so, you've got to be realistic in that side of things. That yes, there is... And I get, people say, it should scale to what your scale is, but I think that would be really hard to do in this situation.
It should not scale. Diablo 4, as far as I heard, does that, and it's absolutely hated. Like that mechanic.
I think, overall, an amazing
how many
story...
people could abuse that?
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you scale it?
I think
Is it
overall,
with the Pokemon you bring in?
an
Bring
amazing
a full level 1 Pokemon, and suddenly everything is level 1.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
I think overall an amazing story. Story gets 10 out of 10 for me. It's a strong story. It's brilliantly done. It's got many memorable characters. It hits very good story beats, and it hits very good emotional beats on different levels. Happy moments, sad moments, like you connect with characters. And it's not often you get to do that in a Pokemon game, because the focus is usually on collecting the Pokemon. The location, I love Paldea. I think Paldea is an amazing region. It's diverse. It's awesome. I think the gym leaders are cool. I think that Geeta is a pushover. She's a weak point. Geeta, I haven't touched on that. Geeta is a weak point, and I said that in the first time we spoke about the base game in a podcast. Geeta was a disappointment, especially after, and I know Cynthia is like the trend setter, and in some degrees, so is Volo these days as well from PLA. But Geeta was a pushover.
Feel like she's more meant to just be the chairwoman.
Yes.
With what we learned, that the league is in charge of looking after and making sure no one goes into Area Zero.
Which I don't understand why they called her the top champion.
Us for that.
They could have just said that she was just a good trainer. Like, why did she have to be the chair? Like, she could be the chairwoman. She didn't have to be the champion. I mean, look at Chairman Rose, for example. He wasn't the champion.
No, absolutely.
She could still have been among the champion-ranked trainers, but Nemona is by far much stronger.
Oh God, definitely.
Yeah. Well, absolutely.
It's bizarre that she was considered tough, because she wasn't. She was a pushover.
And why was the Elite Four locked away after doing it once? That's what I don't understand.
I don't understand, which is disappointing.
Yeah.
Still one of the greatest moments is Larry being revealed as an Elite Four member and the gym leader.
Well, because I picked, like other people, I picked him as my favourite gym leader. So I thought, the person you picked in that situation would be the first Elite Four member. So when I saw him, I was like, I picked you! And then I thought it had a bearing on what I said.
No, it's literally because he works for Geeta and she's overworking him.
But it doesn't change the fact how awesome it was to see him there. It was just so cool.
But yeah, overall, that amazing location. I like quite a significant number of the Pokemon that we introduced. I think the terrestrialization is a fascinating thing, and I think that's made an interesting battle thing. I love what they're doing with the 7-star raids and stuff like that, because it keeps it interesting and it gives them the ability to bring in Pokemon, which means there's still an opportunity that some other Pokemon may appear. It's hard to say. so all of those factors are so like critical to this being a successful game. It's a shame there was performance issues.
Yeah.
Does it make it
Yes.
unplayable like that we're seeing across the board? Many people saying it's unplayable. If you found this game unplayable, I'd hate for you to see some of the games that are legitimately unplayable because there are many of them. This game is not unplayable. It's not unbearable. It's frustrating sometimes with the performance issues, but not in a bad way. And I just made a joke about them at the end of the day because I'm like, whatever, Oh, look, the lake is lagging. Oh, look, Dondozo is moving at 2 frames a second. Fine, cool.
My frames are all falling out.
But I agree with it. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite. It's hard to say. Time will tell. But like, it's definitely up there. It's definitely up there because of everything else is so perfectly done that the performance issues I can overlook.
You know what? I want to know what everyone's final ratings of the game are. We've had part 1 DLC. We've had part 2. The epilogue's still yet to come out. That's coming out in January. But as it stands, we've played the DLC. We've gone through almost pretty much everything the game has to offer. Final ratings and why?
Oh,
I would give it an 8 out of 10. The only reason I'm not giving it a 10 also why it's not my favorite is because of the performance issues.
Mm-hmm.
If there was no performance issues with this, I would give it a straight 10. Because the story is amazing, the character's amazing. It's just a great game. Just a shame that it was, rushed out.
Mm-hmm.
Asa?
yeah, I'd say about 7.5. Again, it's mainly just that lag. It's like there's so many Pokemon in Lag Tree Thicket because I can never remember the actual name of it now because it's just that in my brain.
It's Tag Tree Thicket.
Tag Tree, thank you. Like there's so many Pokemon there that I really want to shiny hunt, but I just don't want to deal with the lag. Like it's to the point where it's like maybe I just go Masuda them. I hate Masuda, but I prefer that over the lag. But the story, the character design.
If I had to
dialogue.
sit here and be objective and take everything into account and my own personal experience with it versus what the general populace says, if I was basing it just purely on me, I would give it a 9. And the reason I'd give it a 9 is that for me personally, the performance issues were disappointing, but it didn't affect my enjoyment of the game enough to say that it brought the game down. It was more of a slight inconvenience at certain points versus it constantly did it all the time to a point that I was like, I'm watching a stop motion animation kind of movie kind of situation.
Yeah.
Do I think that it should have been addressed? Yes. Do I think it's going to be addressed now? Probably not. And that's disappointing. But that's the only reason I can't give it a 10 is just that little bit of polish would have made all the difference. Other than that, they nailed it.
I mean, not to cop out on a reason, but literally my rating and reasons are exactly the same as Beaz's. Like, because it's so strong of a game, so strong of a story, it's just a performance that lets it down, but I'm willing to, it doesn't make it an unplayable game at all, like other people are making it out to be. And with other parts of the game being so fantastic, you've got the, Pterodens being a great way of having multiplayer. It kind of takes in what worked with Dynamax Adventures from Sword and Shield and just makes its own. It's not just a copy, it's like a different thing, but also took what went well. 9 out of 10 for me, purely because of how fun it was and stories. Probably the best Pokemon story outside of side games, because Mystery Dungeon has a very special place.
Oh, 100%, I was going to say 100%. Even as someone who's played Mystery Dungeon game now, it's a different vibe with those versus the mainline games. If we're talking strictly mainline games, this is one of the most powerful, coherent, and best written stories they've done. And
if we're talking main series game, this is easily my favourite one, with Gen 4 just behind.
Yeah, MD games are in a league of its own.
But yeah, I guess we'll see there is a patch coming out in January. Once again, one thing that they need to learn how to do is write proper patch notes because they tell us nothing. Or very little. The epilogue comes out on January the 11th, I believe it is, or 12th, around there. 11th, okay. Do I think that that's going to change much of my opinion? No. I think it's just going to be a fun little send-off for the main crew from the base game. I think that there might be a little bit of that information in that, but because it's a free edition, it's not necessarily DLC. Oh, well, no, you got to complete the DLC.
Yeah, the DLC, so yeah.
Yeah, so it's free, but it's not. They're a little bit how they've worded that when you think about it.
At least it's not an extra thing you have to pay for on top.
Exactly.
I'll take it.
I have no problem with that.
A lot of people that are interested, they're going to pay for the DLC anyway because they want more of this game.
They're not going to buy the DLC because they want the epilogue.
No, they're going to buy the DLC because they want the DLC.
The epilogue is just like the cherry on top of the cake kind of thing.
I hope so. I hope it is.
I know we're getting
in the grand scheme. I'd rather pay for a DLC than a third game.
I don't want, and that's the thing. The only other thing I'm going to touch on very quickly is that I feel that there are certain aspects of Pokemon games moving forward that need to probably be sunsetted, so to speak. I think that trade evolutions are just kind of redundant at this point. It's kind of weird that in every other Pokemon game since PLA, as in like even things like Pokemon Sleep and that, we're getting link cables to evolve them as opposed to the trade stuff. I would be so happy if we got rid of that. The other side of things, which I'm kind of torn because it depends on how they approach it, is that I'm starting to feel like we may not need Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. The two games split is starting to borderline kind of get, why are we doing it? Yeah, there was some changes in Scarlet and Violet that kind of justified it more than any other game because, we've got two different professors. We've got Clavel was wearing something different and the colour schemes and the schools had different names and things like that. But that split into two games is starting to get to a point where it feels a bit more like a money-grabbing thing as opposed to a clever design trading your Pokemon kind of thing.
Well, and unfortunately, while I'm inclined to half agree, because trade evolutions, it sucks to have to deal with them, but I really don't think they're ever going to go purely because from a money standpoint, because as a business, if you think about it from a money-making standpoint, of course, why not make two versions of the game? Because people,
I'll buy both, and I did. Well, we did.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you get people that communicate with each other, they can do it. But then people that really want to play more of the game, but unfortunately, they might not have access to internet all the time, or not have people that play it. They're going to want to get as much as they can. They're going to get both copies of the game anyway. So, from a business standpoint, why not do it? I don't think it's ever going to stop.
No, from a business standpoint, it's not going to stop. From a personal standpoint, I don't know if there's enough reasons for it to be split at the moment. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. If Scarlet and Violet didn't do the little things that it did to change it, I would have sat here and gone, why have I got two of the same game? It would have been the first time I would have gone, why have I got two of the same game? Because it would have been absurd. However, in saying that, it's the first time I've played through both games to completion, not DLC included, but both games to completion and completed the Pokedex on both versions. So that's also very telling of how much I enjoyed the game because I played it twice.
But yeah, back on the trade evolutions. I'm very much someone who mainly does solo play. I don't like bugging people to go, hey, can you trade me? Can you trade me? I've done it to you once, Beaz, because it was a shiny. That was the only reason. I don't like bugging people to do the trade evolutions.
How dare you?
The one good thing...
Shame on you.
I know. I'll bring out my shiny Flygon again.
we didn't even talk about Synchro Machine, but that's fine.
But at least with the raid dens, you can have access to those trade evolutions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's how I got 90% of them.
Yes, because I think the dens are a big thing, and the online system of you can find those Pokemon in the dens, and you can just join randoms if you really want to and do that. I think that is good. And I think the way they learnt from how they did online stuff in Sword and Shield, because online stuff in Sword and Shield was fucking diabolical. The way that worked versus how they're doing this. If they're going to continue with that online system that they've got in Scarlet and Violet, I'm all for it. You know, the random generated codes, the linking system, everything worked really well with that versus how they did it inside. So they've learnt from that.
Yeah.
And it gives people the opportunity to, as you said, you know, these dens and that give you the chance, like they're doing Walking Wake and Iron Leaves again. It gives people a chance to get the one that they can't get on their own version because it will be available via the online or whatever else. I know people are going to go, but what happens if you don't have online? Okay, people bitch about that with Pokemon. Literally every game practically under the sun now requires some sort of online connection. It's not Pokemon exclusive. So you can't keep using the Pokemon shouldn't have online functionality or be required for you to have online functionality. I'm sorry, but it's on the same on Xbox, PlayStation. You know, there's always been a requirement for that, and Nintendo are now joining that because they should have probably been there like 10 years ago with everyone else, but they didn't until now.
Also, just on that, how many people had linking cables back in the Game Boy era?
I did. I was the only one who had one, so I was like king of the playground kind of thing, you know? It's like, I want to trade.
Not everyone had that.
No.
Never had a Game Boy, so no.
I'm going to throw
me personally, I never had a Pokemon game until X and Y came out.
Oh, wow. That is incredible.
I grew up where I played Pokemon games beforehand because the good old black market of emulators.
Yeah.
That's how I first played Pokemon. That's how I first played Mystery Dungeon.
Oh, man, Mystery Dungeon is fantastic. You know what?
It wasn't until, the 3DS that I had a Pokemon game.
Same.
I have an idea to finish off on this trade evolution conversation. I have an idea of how they can fix it. Pokemon Company, you're not going to listen, but on the off chance you do, introduce a touch trade option.
Yes.
So if you
like this,
you can have
an automatic trade back and forth.
Yeah. So, but even like an animation where it's like there's some sort of connection between the two Pokeballs, for example, or the Pokeball trainer, because like carrying on with Beaz's point in the sense of because everything is connected to online nowadays. Unfortunately, there is the payable for Nintendo Switch Online, but maybe have a feature that isn't behind payable, or then again, how would you make money? But even then, a touch trade option where you can connect with a random stranger online because there's a worry of you are doing it with a stranger, but they're not going to give the Pokemon back because why would they? If you do a touch trade option where you only find people that are also wanting to touch trade, it could be a good way to fill a Pokedex up without having to harass people.
Yeah, where the touch trade would work in a way that it would send it to them, register it to their Pokedex, and then send it back immediately. Yeah. They wouldn't have the option to keep it. It would be purely touch trade. That would be a cool. That would be a cool thing.
That's a very good idea.
There's a lot of people who were. I don't want to even risk touch trade in. I
had someone come into my chat yesterday, whenever it was, and wanted me to touch trade one of the two paradoxes, and I'm going, no offense, but no.
Yeah,
I don't know who you are. Like, if it had been, say, like, you know, you any of you here, or people that I know and I interact with all the time, be a different story. But some rando coming in my chat going, "Can I touch trade?" Like, I'm never going to see that Pokemon again. You're going to take my Pokemon, and you're going to be gone.
And in all fairness, if you used to fall for that, that's not really. I mean, yeah, it sucks that they wanted to do it, but like, it's also, you know, you should know better.
You're just trying to be nice and help someone feel at the desk, and then suddenly you just lose your things.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be like much younger, not even think about, you know, what if they keep it, what if they don't trade it back.
It would just literally be a case of like them going up and going yoink. Like it's literally that.
Yeah,
just add a touch trade option. That's all I want, and it'll be
not a bad thought. Not a bad thought. Honestly, not a bad thought.
I really like that thought because, like, even though you know there's a YouTuber who sets up codes for all like the trades and that.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, they've got the trades to get this for this. But You're
At that
losing
point,
out on...
at that point, what's the point? Because at that point, it's like, well, okay, if this is just a default, I've got to go through the pain of like, I have to do this kind of thing. It's just kind of like it's mindless task versus cool thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just going out of your way. I mean, I'm not going to advocate for some of the stupid evolution steps we've had with certain things, like Inkay, for example. Stop.
I don't like it.
Rodriguez.
Yeah, or like, Runerigus, where you got to go to a specific spot, or, certain evolutions you got to be turning upside down and shaking your face one way, and you...
I'm in the minority where I like that because at least it's unique and different.
The one reason
some of them I can accept.
I liked Inkay's like evolution method originally on the DS. Here on the Switch, not so much because I tend to have it docked, and also and also because I play with a Pro controller, and that cannot be.
It doesn't work.
Switch all if you have it upside down because it doesn't register.
It doesn't work. No. There are some that I can accept have got weird evolution. Like, I don't mind that, if Pokemon's going to know a certain move. I think Arceus created an absolute monster with, use this move 20 times.
It kind of got you done way too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Because I freaked out.
Bash 20 times.
I freaked out going, when I seen the Hisuian Quillfish, I'm like, how the fuck do I evolve this thing in Scarlet and Violet? Because I've never done it. Is it, I use... Bar Barrage 20 times. I can't do it like a specific skill style or whatever because it doesn't exist in Scarlet and Violet. But it was literally, it's just got to know the move. It just had to know the move and I leveled it up and it was fine. I was like, oh, alright.
That's neat.
So I was like, okay, cool, that's fine. I can live with that. But it's like, But it's like when we used to have... It was kind of cool, but it was kind of irritating. I like the fact that I miss this. I miss the run your Eevee up and down next to an ice stone and it'll turn into a Glaceon. But then on the other side of things, I'm like, it's just easy enough. Here's an ice stone.
Yeah. I do like that in Arceus, it did have that option. It still had like the bossy stone.
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
but
one that we touched on very quickly in Indigo Disc was we checked if you could evolve Magneton and Vikavolt and all of those ones that use in the Thunderwave cave. I've been playing too much bloody
in the electric field.
In the electric field, around the crystals doesn't work.
Missed opportunity, ask me.
Oh, that would have been such a cool little like Easter egg nod to previous games if it was just like, okay, you got a choice of here's a Thunderstone, or if you just go stand over here. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
I do like though when you're running around in Chargestone Cave and that if you're right by the crystal, you got like the electrical charges under your feet.
I think me and Pat spoke about this recently when we were in a call, and it was just like one of those things that because I don't know about other people, but I know me and Pat especially loved Gen 5 so much.
Yes, that's where I started.
It was such a nostalgic thing to realize.
Yeah, and that's also got me thinking, like, what if it's more than just a visual effect? What if it's also counts as a magnetic field for the evolution that needed? So we tested it. It doesn't work. It's just a visual effect.
It's a shame.
Which is cool. It's cool. It's cool to see, like, with a throwback to Chargestone Cave, but missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I'm glad that the other side thing when I say about these there are some that I'm glad they've gotten rid of. For example, we don't have the issues with evolving Feebas.
Oh, good.
At least Feebas is now hold this item, trade it. Because the original ways were just horrific.
Plus, it would work in the games that don't have the contests.
Exactly. There's no way to make them that. And I think it's maximum happiness in Sword and Shield, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
Happiness evolutions can get fucked.
Happiness evolutions are
that's
another
a you
one.
problem, Luke.
Happiness evolutions are one of those.
Although with most of them, I just throw candies at them and they get happy having a lot of freaking candy.
It never used to be that easy.
The other one I have a gripe with, and that was introduced in this one, is fucking walking those Pokemon. I'm sorry.
Oh my god, yes.
Walking Rellor, walking bloody Pawmi, Pawmo.
Always a Pokemon that walk really slow.
Yeah, and what was the other one? Rellor, Pawmi, and there's three of them. Oh, Bramblin.
Yeah, and you have to purposefully walk slow.
Yes.
Let me. I hate escort quests for the fact that the person that's normally following you that you have to follow is doody 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 doo. Oh, look at the sun!
And literally,
And you're just like,
the worst of the three is Relor.
Yeah.
Relor is just
yeah.
taking 10,000 years to walk along. He's like, I'm like, oh lord, oh lord, he walking. Like,
Is he? I can't see if he's moving or not.
You know what?
Yeah.
Scarlet and Violet, pretty damn good games. I liked them. The DLC was very fun. Very excited for the epilogue. I still think that we might see the Professor, but that's just my guess.
It would be cool. I think it would be cool. I think it'd be a good way to wrap it all up. You know, I mean,
and Arwen did want a closure with their parent too.
Yeah,
so that would be a nice way to wrap that up.
Yeah, that would be a fantastic, because that's been an overarching story the entire time.
Because the closest he got was with the the AI saying that his parent would be proud of them and how far he's come. But it's like even after that, he's still digging around, try to find out more.
So...
Like I would, because we're going to Kikami, I'd love to take him up to the pool and have Terrapagos and just get that closure.
Oh god, I wonder if that's a thing. Oh, see, now I want to try that.
I hope so.
Oh god, when that epilogue comes out.
I really hope so. Like, I really would love that to happen. I would be a bit disappointed if it doesn't.
Okay, well, that's something we have to check out on January the 11th. So yeah. Well, we are going to wrap it up there. We have spoken about it in huge amounts of detail. Whether you enjoy... What's that?
2.5 hours now.
Yeah, whether you enjoyed the games or not, my opinion remains the same, that everyone is entitled to their opinions and you can enjoy the game, but don't spoil the games for other people. If you don't enjoy it, move on, find another game. Let the people who are enjoy it play it, because unless the game has issues that affect every single player or the majority, it's not fair to spoil the experience for others, and I stand by that in any game. So if you enjoyed Scarlet and Violet, I'm right there along with you, and if you didn't, that's also fair. The game wasn't for you.
And don't bully or harass people who disagree with your opinion on the game.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
We how
they want to play.
We bully each other about it, but that's all in that's all in jest. But in seriousness, I respect people's opinions in regards to what they enjoy and they don't enjoy. I would never force one upon them. So I hope you enjoyed our little insight into what we thought of it all, because I know a lot of people have asked me about what I thought overall, and I know that everyone here has had their different experiences with it as well, so that's why it was nice to be able to bring in some different mindsets. And yeah, if you want to check out any of these guys on their different platforms and that, they'll all be in the description below. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because then you'll know when videos go live. Click the notification bell. Yeah, I'm doing the whole typical YouTuber thing. And if you want to, you can become
down, but you can't see my paws.
And if you want to, you can become a member of my channel, and you get early access to videos and a badge and some emotes to use either in live chats or on my video comments. But yeah, overall, awesome. Love the game. Interested to see where they go from here. But until the next time we do one of these or whatever video you're watching, thanks for watching along, and we'll see you then. All right, bye guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.